We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else. As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
You just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson, and we are ready to review all of the Week 11 NFL action. Another crazy week, Sam. But first, a little teaser. We did pitch and hit the other day.
Yeah.
I pitched to you the other night over at the University of Cincinnati.
Nobody has a cast. There's no massive injury that's taken place.
We don't know that I didn't hit you, but if it did, maybe it didn't hurt all that much.
Right. So Wednesday is when we'll actually cover this. We'll have a video. We'll tell the whole story, et cetera, et cetera. But this show is already 9.5 hours long. We don't have that kind of time on a Monday.
We don't.
So it happened. It may happen again because our catcher let us down and we owe somebody the stretch goal of me doing it as catcher. But the main thing happened. There will be video evidence on Wednesday. Now we're into the games.
And it was fun. We ran out a little, started to get dark.
Big shout out to the various people, again, Wednesday. But, Stinger Bats for hooking us up with the equipment. UC for letting us in their building, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was great. They let us in on a Friday evening, and we got to have some fun. And we'll get you guys some footage on all that. And, it was great. So we're live on YouTube, as always, on a Monday morning. We're going to review all of the Week 11 action. Of course, the PFF NFL Daily also around to help cover the action. We covered the Patriots a little bit on Friday morning. So if you're looking for some Patriots-Falcons analysis, it's on the PFF NFL Daily on that feed from Friday morning. Today on the Daily, we talked about kind of the things that are real, things that might be not so real coming out of yesterday. We'll get into all of it.
You mocked my title suggestion.
What's it?
What's signal and what's noise?
Signal and noise.
Yeah.
Is that what we did?
What did we end up changed it because you mocked it.
I just felt like something the analytics dorks would come up with.
Maybe I'm an analytics dork.
No, don't be. I'm trying to keep you grounded here.
Oh, yeah?
That's not exactly what
Also, I don't have the mathematical skills to be one of those people.
No, you don't. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Week 11 review. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts with a dominant, I say that word a lot too, 41-15 victory over the Buffalo Bills. I think most people would look around and say this is one of the surprises of the week, but based off my conversations with you, you weren't terribly surprised by this? You saw this one coming. You saw a lot of things coming.
No. Look, I saw the Texans game coming. That's the one where if you go back and listen to the preview show, I basically nailed that in the intro to that topic. This one, I thought there was a very real chance. I thought Indianapolis would definitely cover, and I thought there was a real chance they would win this game outright. I didn't think they would win 41-15.
Yeah.
Like, that part is a major surprise. But the idea that the Indianapolis Colts would go there, would be able to establish serious control on the ground, rack up a ton of points, put that Buffalo offense in the same rough spot that a bunch of teams have put them in recently, except the Jets, because, the Jets are terrible. That part's not surprising.
It's nice having new graphics, except when it reminds people who we picked in these games.
But, again, it's...
You changed your pick by the time you were going live on the PFF NFL
No, this
show.
is like... my point was that hammer the Indy covering the line, right? We're being... Frankly, we're being
Those money
undone.
line picks?
This is the thing. Frankly, we're being undone by the producers here. Right?
Yeah, we really are.
The people in the booth are screwing us because the whole point was that this was definitely the Colts would definitely cover, and they covered by about 35 points.
I mean, I don't like this because
it reminds people we got it wrong.
Well, I mean, most people don't remember our takes from Thursday or from the weekend, and we could just lie. Like, oh, I said Indy was definitely going to do this.
Yeah.
You know? So, anyway, 32 carries for 185 yards, 4 touchdowns just on the ground, another one through the air for Jonathan Taylor.
They won a game 41-15 where Wentz had 106 passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Buffalo defense has been the league's best this year, and usually when you have the league's best defense, it's not because you're great at stopping the run, it's because of what you do in the passing game. And Buffalo was still pretty good in the passing game. They just got absolutely demolished on the ground. And then on the other side, we had talked about the Colts, having the defense to stay patient, right? Having the defense to play the really deep safeties, and they did. And Jonathan Allen came back with one of those really, really volatile Josh Allen games with 4 turnover-worthy plays, and two actual interceptions, a couple more that he got away with. A couple of those were late as well, but like getting strip sacked with the ball just taken straight out of his hands. There are plays like that also contributed to the thrashing that the Colts put on the Bills here.
Thrashing's a good word.
Yeah, I mean dominant. I'm trying to get away from dominant.
Oh, I like thrashing. Yeah. It's just thrashing always, it's always connected in my brain to like those old English, turn of the century type of accents.
That's what I'm going for, yeah.
Yeah. I just don't, you're not a person I would associate with that accent and therefore that turn of phrase, but I like it.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. So what else coming out of this game now? The other takeaway here, we mentioned that we talked about the Patriots and Mac Jones maybe for Rookie of the Year coming out of Thursday. The Patriots are now officially in first place.
Yeah, Buffalo dropped from the second seed to, did they end up in 6th? 7th?
Yeah, usually drop pretty far because you don't.
But the Chargers won,
top 4.
But they might have dropped all the way to 7, did they? I haven't checked the standings since last night.
I don't know. All I know is there was a 35 run defense grade for the Bills defense. 35. This was shades of last year where we would say, look, the Bills are a little undersized up front. You can attack them with the running game, maybe not to this level of extreme, but they're, this highlights maybe if there's a weakness in Buffalo, it is playing power football, and it's also the Colts continuing to come together. I mean, they have, Chris mentioned it last night too, they've got 2 overtime losses. I always reference the Ravens one because they blew a 22-3 lead, but they did lose the Colts in overtime to the Tennessee Titans a couple weeks ago. And it's not if you take those games out, but if, a bounce goes here and there, we're talking about the Colts legitimately right in the thick of the AFC, and they kind of are anyway.
They are,
I mean, they are anyway. That's 6-5 because the AFC is so wide open.
They're half a game back from Buffalo, who are in the 7th seed.
All I'm saying is it could have been even better for the Colts, but they have finally reestablished again what we thought they could be coming into the year.
Yeah, I mean, a huge part of it is since they've had that offensive line back. Now, Quentin Nelson left the game injured, but since they've had that offensive line, they have been crushing people on the ground. Heading into that game, they were averaging 7.5 yards per carry in the last couple of games, 4 yards per carry before contact, which is like 2 yards more than anybody else. They're a completely different team when they have their offensive line there. And they match up well against Buffalo because their defense plays the kind of system that has been causing Buffalo and Kansas City some problems. So the narrative from the Chiefs for most of the season, quietly, that was happening to Buffalo as well, only people didn't really notice as much. And then whereas the Chiefs had their get-right game against the Raiders, who just don't play that type of defense, the Bills had it against the Jets, who might play that type of defense but don't play any type of defense well enough for it to matter. So Buffalo just did whatever the hell they wanted against the Jets, and you're like, oh, well, forget that then. But the Colts go out there and play the type of defense that frustrates and causes those quarterbacks to make mistakes, and Josh Allen made mistakes. Now, the other thing, this will caveat a bunch of games this week, but there were crappy conditions everywhere.
Sure.
This was one of those games where, I'm telling you this off air, woke up and it's pouring rain outside, drive in for our pregame show, leave, it's just raining all day. And then you turn on, Red Zone, and they turn on the TV for the games, and it's like most of the country is raining.
Right.
You're like, okay, immediately this week, it's going to be one of those weeks, right? When the entire country is raining, there's going to be some ugly, crappy football, and connected to that, weird results. Because nothing changes the outcome of games more than weird turnovers left and right. So there are a bunch of these games where there are a lot of turnovers. There's a lot of sloppy football. There's just plays that don't normally happen, which are going to swing the outcome of games.
No week more famous, I don't think, than that week in 2013, back when we were doing the grading and all that stuff. It's like week 12, week 13. Yeah, I remember it was Lions, Eagles in the crazy snow. It was like a foot of snow across the country. I like that. When the whole country is just dealing with the same. Like, there's just snow. That was like 4 or 5 snow games the same
Yeah,
day.
I think snow games, though, actually impact it less than rain. Rain is just terrible.
Depends on how bad the snow is. If it's
Sure, but like
if it's ankle high, it's.
But even then, like it's
shin high. It's a thing.
It's a thing, but it impacts the game in a different way. Whereas rain is just bad for everything. Like rain causes sloppy football and turnovers and chaos. Snow tends to just affect the game in a different way.
So coming out of this game here, by the way, we've been making a few Bills-Chiefs similarities. Play too high, make the huge playmaking quarterback patient and all that stuff. The thing we kept saying about the Chiefs in recent weeks when they were struggling offensively was, you know what? It's the offensive line still playing well. This is the Bills' highest pass blocking grade of the season. And I know it felt like Josh Allen was under pressure a couple weeks ago against the Jaguars, and it felt like, hey, the offensive line could be this issue, right? The offensive line, the run game, they just don't have balance on offense, and they don't have other answers and all that stuff. The O-line played well, and Allen was still putting the ball in harm's way. I mean, to me, that is the concerning part, but also that similar blueprint against the Chiefs, which is, give the underneath stuff and make that quarterback patient, and we just did not get that from the Bills.
And if you look at the breakdown, the coverages, like the Colts they did that game plan. Cover 2, cover 6, quarters. That's basically all they ran. They had a couple of snaps here or there of cover 1, cover 3, but this was the game plan. Like they literally ran the exact blueprint to cause Kansas City and Buffalo problems, and the Bills had no answer to it. In addition to like just crushing them on the ground, like this was the perfect storm of how to beat Buffalo.
Bills are now 6-4. Now coming out of this, they got a quick turnaround. They'll be playing Thanksgiving night at New Orleans. For whatever that's worth, for whatever the Saints is left of the Saints right now. But then Patriots on Monday Night Football, I believe it is, or some sort of primetime game.
They have 2 games against the Patriots in like the next 3-4 games.
It's week 13 and week 16. But they have New England at home, at Tampa Bay, then Carolina and Cam. Ooh, how about that? Cam and, it's Carolina and Cam versus Buffalo and the new Cam and Josh Allen, right? And,
the new Cam.
McDermott and like all those connections. And then at New England again before finishing with the Falcons and the Jets. So pretty critical time here for the Bills. And again, for Indianapolis, they're at 6-5 and right in the middle of everything in the AFC. Not as much in the South where, the Titans still, have it not completely in hand, but, the Titans are in control of the South.
Yeah, they need a lot to go their way for them to take the division, but they're firmly in the chase for those wild card spots.
But the Colts have the Bucs next week at home. They have New England coming up soon. They've got the Cardinals at some point. They've got the Jaguars later. So interesting turn here for the Colts, who have just they've been scoring a ton of points. They've scored at least 30 points in 5 out of their last 6 games, which makes last week's game against Jacksonville kind of almost a weird anomaly here in the middle of it. So impressive win by the Indianapolis Colts. Working from home, more important than ever now. Optimize your home office with an X chair and our many accessories to enhance your focus, productivity, energy, and comfort. Already feeling that at home, because once you feel the customized support of X Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar, that's the DVL, there is no going back. Look at this.
Wow.
You could see the DVL right there. This is fantastic. Kudos to the producers.
I like that as a look at that as a label. This is a DVL.
That's the DVL. So that's where you get if you do get the LMX massage and temperature regulation. Again, when I wake up early in the morning, my office is freezing cold, so I throw the heater on there, throw the massage on there. It's exclusively designed and made for X-Chair, and with versatile comfort and extraordinary design, X-Chair fits any space. Look at that, LMX cooling, heat, and massage chair. I'm going to need it this summer too, because my office gets really, really hot as well. So the cooling will be perfect. High performance, quality engineering, extreme comfort. Those are the reasons I love my X-Chair. X-Chair. Now I can't wait to be at work, and sometimes even if I'm not working, I just sit in the X-Chair just to get that feeling. That's what I do. Take my advice. Try X-Chair for yourself. Risk-free for 30 days. Go to xchairnflpod.com. That's the letter X, chair, NFLPOD.com, or call 1-844 X-Chair for $100 off your order. Huge, great deal. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. It's X-Chair, NFLpod.com. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description. And a special shout out to the producers for putting the chair up there because you can see how nice it is. And you customize with all sorts of different colors, a lot of options in there. I got the really good option, but there's a lot of different options.
Colors, materials, different types of wheels. There's all kinds of stuff, and they are stupidly comfortable.
Yeah, so appreciate X-Chair, new sponsor here on the podcast.
But that's an insane. So $100 off, $30 a month financing potential, and 30 days free. That's a deal.
It's a lot of things we're throwing at you there.
A lot of things. Remember the link though, because that's where we get credit.
Yeah. Use the link. Washington football team 27, Carolina Panthers 21. A sneaky good game this week as the football team moves to 4-6. The Panthers fall to 5-6. Cam Newton with his first start. More good than bad, I'd say, in there, Sam. But there was a fourth quarter comeback opportunity for Cam and the Panthers. It just did not go well. Get sacked late on the last play. Robbie Anderson, nice play along the sideline. It was a nice throw along the sideline. Robbie Anderson didn't stay in bounds, kind of hurt that comeback effort. But another solid win for the football team. Back-to-back wins now against the Bucs and the Panthers.
Nobody is out of the playoffs.
In the hunt.
Right. Everybody, the entire league this year is conspiring to keep everybody in the hunt forever.
I like it.
I think the only team officially eliminated are the Lions. I think everyone else is technically still
Sounds
alive.
Right.
Including the Giants, who play tonight. We finally got a good Taylor Heineke game.
Yeah.
This is the high
close
end.
last week. He had a couple turnover-worthy plays he got away with last week, but this was pretty clean
Yeah.
from Heineke.
This was the first in a long time game where you just get the high end of Taylor Heineke. This is the game we've been waiting for, where it's like, Ryan Fitzpatrick, in order to spit out this average grade over the course of a season, is going to have a couple of grades in the 90s, a couple of grades in the 30s, and bounce around all over the place. And given that Taylor Heineke is basically just Ryan Fitzpatrick but younger and clean-shaven, you were expecting a similar thing. But we hadn't had this high-end Taylor Heineke game. Like, the closest he'd come since the playoff game, which is still the best game he's ever had, was that game was it Thursday night against the Giants way back in week 2. We're like, oh, look, Taylor Heineke may have it to be a starting quarterback. Then it's just kind of bad Heineke from that point on. Finally, we got the high end, couple of dimes, couple of, let's say, optimistic passes to Terry McLaurin, which I think are generally not bad ideas because Terry McLaurin is amazing.
Sure.
And everything kind of came up his way.
I think when you look at this one, and I'm going to mention this in the Minnesota game, I do think the impact of that legit true number one. I mean, Terry McLaurin had exactly half of Taylor Heineke's passing yards, or the receiving yards for the football team, 103 yards out of Heineke's 206. You've got two big plays in there, a touchdown in there as well. But I think it just shows the impact, what the impact of what a true number one wide receiver can have on a game, where the rest of the receiving core, Adam Humphries was number 2, for Washington. But one guy can kind of carry the load there. And I think you're starting to see the football team, the defense playing a little bit more true to what we were expecting coming into the season as far as performance, even though they were going to get worse and all that stuff with all the quarterbacks they were playing. But they're in the hunt like everybody else and dangerous. Got to be a disappointing game though for the Carolina Panthers, right? I mean, if you're the Carolina Panthers sitting there at 5-5 with low expectations probably coming into the season, outside expectations.
Yeah.
You jump out to a 3-0 start. Sam Darnold implodes. You've won a game with P.J. Walker against the best team in the NFC. And now you've got MVP Cam Newton, right? I mean, it'd be an easy narrative to say Carolina's hanging out at 5-5. They've got the number 7 seed, and now you upgrade your quarterback position to Cam Newton. It's got to be disappointing that, Carolina comes out of this with a loss when on paper, it'd be. I'm sure they're looking, being like, all right, we're going to try to get to 10 wins here. We're going to get into the playoffs, and not a great start now to the second Cam Newton era in Carolina.
Yeah, they've made all these moves as if they expect to be a playoff team this year, and as we just said, everybody is in the hunt, so it's not like they're out of the picture. But that was an important game to drop and was problematic in terms of their aspirations for the playoffs. Washington are another one of these teams where, so they're 4-6, which is obviously not a particularly strong position to be in terms of chasing the playoff spots, even the wild card spots where, you know, you're a game back from teams like Minnesota, who are starting to look like one of those teams that's going to snag the wild card spots. But because of the way the NFL has like scheduled all these division games, Washington still plays Dallas twice. Like they're 3 games back from Dallas, but 2 of those 3 games are against Dallas. So they effectively only need to pick up a game somewhere else in the schedule over the Cowboys to all of a sudden be ahead of them in the standings. Like Philadelphia are in a similar spot. They're 5-6 with 2 games back from Dallas. Like there's a lot of these teams that don't look like they're miles away from the playoff picture. But with every team in the NFL dropping random games that you don't expect them to lose, like it's still wide open.
You're really just going right for the you're looking at the NFC East still. You trying to hold on to your preseason priors with the football team making their run?
No, I don't think they're going to do it. I'm just saying that
there are meaningful games there.
There's a lot of teams now that are in weird positions where they don't look like they're like, you know, you pull up those in the hunt graphics, right? And it's like, oh, the Giants are still in the hunt. Like what a joke this is. But like there are teams like Washington that are quite a way back that could very quickly flip that picture. And the way this season is going, that's more likely now than it usually is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I want to connect this to Philadelphia as well because, you know, now they're 5-6.
Yeah, and they've already played at the Cowboys once. So they're one down. They only have 1 game against Dallas, but similar idea.
I mean, if you're looking at the football, look, Dallas is a tough game no matter what. But if you're looking at the football team's schedule, they did hit this rough. I mean, they faced some really good teams along the way here, including the Chiefs, Packers, the Bucks, who they beat. And you're saying, hey, well, you know, we've got some opportunities here with 2 games against the Eagles and 2 games against the Cowboys, and then the Giants. Their last 5 games are all division games.
Right.
Old school NFC East, baby.
But also they've got like Seattle, who all of a sudden suck because their quarterback has got mallet finger. The Raiders, who have fallen apart. Like their schedule, which looked brutal a while ago, all of a sudden is a little bit easier than we thought it was. I'm not saying Washington's going to do anything. I think they're not a particularly good team. But all of a sudden, there's the capacity for that team to catapult themselves up the playoff standings pretty quickly.
Any thoughts on Carolina coming out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Carolina, without meaning to quote Dennis Green, they are who we thought they are, right? They're like, okay.
Yeah.
Cam Newton didn't transform them from okay into something better. He is a better quarterback than they've had on the roster so far this season, and it still wasn't enough.
They had all their – I mean, they had Cam back there, and it kind of – like on paper, if you saw the stats or the results, you're like, oh, Christian McCaffrey, 10 carries for 59. Cam had his 10 carries and a really nice touchdown run. Nice seam pass from Cam Newton to Christian McCaffrey. Like you're tapping into those pass catchers. I described this the other day as maybe the best group of receivers that Cam Newton has thrown to because DJ Moore's really good because you have McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. I don't want to completely overrate Robbie Anderson not staying in bounds when he should have along the sideline, but 5 catches for 30 yards for him. He had been having a disappointing season, but if a receiver has a disappointing season, how much do you blame the quarterback and usage pattern and all that stuff? But so far, not a great start for Robbie, combined with Cam Newton. So the Panthers are going to be, I think what we expected, just okay of a football team, but I think they just have more offensive potential that they did not completely tap into here.
Like Cam Newton is a clear upgrade over Sam Darnold, but the question is how much and can it offset the problems that they have? Like both guards in this game had a pass blocking grade of 32 or lower. They had, Pat Elflein is starting for them as well. Like the offensive line is problematic. Their defense, which is like the strength, got torched. I mean, they have a ton of rough grades on the defensive side of the ball, which is the side you expect to, keep their head above water. Like that's the issue in today's NFL with having a team where your defense is the strength. Is that sure overall that might be the case, but like on a week-to-week basis, even the best defenses in the NFL can just get lit up one day by a random team like Washington. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like defense is just too unstable to lean on as the thing that's going to carry your team. Unless you have one of those transcendent, absurd defenses, you just can't expect it to carry you every week.
Well, let's stay in the NFC East and discuss Eagles 40, Saints 29. 40-29. Eagles scoring points again. So, yeah, as I said, they moved to 5-6.
First batch of games, by the way, headed to Premium Stats 2.0.
Oh, they're all headed right now?
Yep.
So, breaking news.
You can get.
Breaking news. Premium Stats 2.0. They're getting their games. If you guys have PFF Elite, you guys can get them right now as they head over there. Our team's been up all night reviewing these things. And, of course, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription using the promo code NFLPod. People have been listening, and they said, look, we want to be a part of the action here, and we don't want to use anyone else's promo code. We want to use the NFL Pod promo code.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, so if you're a multi-podcast listener here at PFF, which I'm sure you are, you're going to use our pod, our promo code, NFL Pod.
We were the first pod. We likely captured,
we're the flagship.
We captured your attention first.
We're the flagship,
and we would appreciate it if you gave us some indication that was the case by using our promo code.
The other guys are like, oh, a higher percentage of our listeners are converting and stuff. It's like, yeah, but you don't have millions and millions of listeners.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like the percentage of millions is always going to be
very hard to get a large percentage of millions and millions.
But with your help, we can get that high percentage. So it's 25% off using NFL Pod. Anyway, this was the box score. Sometimes, we're anti-box score here at PFF, but sometimes I like the picture that it paints, right?
Score.
Yes. The picture that this paints for the Eagles back in August, if you're like, this is what an Eagles game is going to look like. Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, and Jordan Howard, so of course 2 running backs and the quarterback, all have more than 10 carries. Jalen Hurts leads the way with 18. They have 50 total carries. Even Boston Scott had 6.
Yeah.
But 50 total carries for the Eagles on the ground compared to about 27, 28 dropbacks. It's like, okay, that's the type of game I thought the Eagles might play. And, they're a power running team now.
The more the Eagles season goes on, the more I come to question just what the hell they were doing for the first 7-8 weeks of the season. This was not what the offense looked like. And then it's like they accidentally figured out their identity. Like they ran into Detroit, and all of a sudden they just wrecked the Lions on the ground with that offensive line and the run game. And it's like anybody you gave a carry to in that game was going to rack up 5 yards plus per carry, just dominate. And all of a sudden Jalen Hurts doesn't have the ball in his hands every single snap trying to make something happen. And it's like from that point on, they were just like, oh, you know what? This is better than what we were doing before. Why don't we just do this in every game? Like if we crush teams on the ground, all of a sudden the entire offense is better. We move the ball constantly. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do everything all by himself. The receiving game, the receivers look better because they're not expected to do everything. And it makes total sense. This is clearly what the Eagles should have been if Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. I don't understand how it took them 8 weeks to accidentally discover this.
Sometimes I just like to look at points per game. Again, I feel like I'm leaning on some pretty broad stats here.
Yeah.
But just to paint a picture, right? If I told you that the Eagles were averaging the same points per game as the Rams this season, what would you say? I know they're coming off a 40 that just, brought it up a little bit, but the Rams are at 27.1, the Eagles are at 27. And this also includes, this is just points. It's not just offense. It's, the pick 6 from Darius Slay, fumble 6 last week. All I'm saying is a Jalen Hurts-led offense, that team is scoring a ton of points. And this perception that the Rams, I know they're coming off their worst weeks and the Eagles are trending the other way, but this is, there's perception being changed a little bit here. And the Eagles, I think, as they've changed their offensive identity a little bit, it is working, relying on that offensive line, relying on Jalen Hurts in the design run game where he did have 3 touchdowns total, but design run game to keep defenses off balance, create easier throws, take pressure off him as a passer because they're starting to score more points without Jalen Hurts actually playing as well as he maybe did early in the season, throw for throw. And it's a different world. And I think this is, again, what I think we discussed about the Eagles coming into the season. I felt like Hurts and playing this style would get them to a potentially 500 record. They were either going to look like a completely rebuilding team or they were going to have games like this where they're running the ball like crazy and they beat some pretty good teams. The Eagles, another one of those teams that might be tough to play week in, week out here.
And just like look at the offensive line grades, right? Jordan Mailata, 87 pass blocking grade. Landon Dickinson, 83. Jack Driscoll, 83. Lane Johnson, 84. Like, that offensive line is a monstrous unit. I do not understand how it took them so long to work out that should actually be the platform on which they build the entire offense. But now that they have, again, the Eagles are another one of these teams that are different to what they were earlier in the season. And again, they've got a shot of overhauling a team like Dallas if the Cowboys drop a couple of games and if Philadelphia wins their game against Dallas, and all of a sudden they can catapult themselves not just back into the wild card spots, but back into the top of that division.
Dallas Goedert re-signed to a big deal. He was the top free agent tight end in our free agent top 50, our initial top 50. So Goddard is now signed and locked up for the Eagles, and they will be one of the most discussed teams this offseason, Sam, because of those 3 pending first-round picks, and depending on the way this season ends, we'll be talking about the Eagles quite a bit this offseason. But yeah, they're just interesting story as we get to the second half here. A team that we, looked like you might be able to write them off early in the year at times, but they keep, coming back and lurking around here.
As you see at one point in this game, Marcus Davenport tried to have a fight with Jordan Mailata.
Oh man,
How many people on the planet do you think are a worse idea to start a fight with than Jordan Mailata?
I mean, that's like, but Marcus Davenport, man.
Yeah.
That's Hulk Hogan.
Marcus Davenport is outweighed
King
by
Kong
about
Bundy.
80 pounds from Jordan Mailata.
So was Hogan against King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania.
That's like
2.
me starting a fight with you.
No, it's not exactly. Because as you get closer to giant status, the difference in weight matters less.
I mean, it still matters quite a lot.
Like, I've seen Marcus Davenport completely engulf quarterbacks at his 6'8", 270 or whatever he is.
Yeah.
And so that is a massive difference.
And Mailata can completely engulf Davenport.
Yeah, but when you're starting at 270 versus 340, whatever Mailata is. 365. Yeah, it's Hogan Bundy WrestleMania 2, and Davenport. I think maybe you could body slam him and take him.
You think?
It's a good battle. It's a good battle.
Every
now and again, that's also one of those matches, matchups, not wrestling matches. Matchups I like to go back and watch, and you just see the back and forth between just behemoths and really good players like that. Mailata continues to be just an unbelievable story as a former rugby player turned legitimate starter in the NFL. On the Saints side here, Sam, they now fall to 5-5. Now they're reeling after their big win against the Bucs a couple weeks ago, and Trevor Siemian, this was the worst of his 3 starts now.
He was still okay. Dude, they just don't have receivers. Nobody.
Yeah,
Siemian.
The roster kind of caught up to them. It's not all Siemian blame.
But yeah,
I'm saying the perimeter, the roster on the perimeter, I think is catching up to the Saints there.
Yeah, this was a game that was closer to what you would expect from Trevor Siemian than the last couple of games that have been legitimately clean, impressive performances from him. This game you saw a bit more in terms of just bad mistakes. He threw the ball basically straight to a linebacker, bad inaccurate pass, trying to hit his tight end the sideline. This was more what you would expect from Siemian. There was also a bunch of big-time throws in there as well, which is less what you would expect from Siemian. But
sure,
they were just they're just undone by who is he throwing to? The margin for error when you don't have receivers that can get open and make consistent plays without the quarterback just feeding it to them into a tight window is kind of crazy. And they've got nobody.
The Saints made it interesting. They did try to make a second half comeback. Ultimately, I think it's the Saints with 8 missed tackles just in the run game alone. Quan Alexander missed a bunch. P.J. Williams missing a couple. One of the strengths of the Saints defense was their run defense, and that just wasn't there yesterday overall.
Darius Slay's pick 6. By the way, he's got 3 touchdowns in the last 3-4 weeks. Something insane.
I mean, he's a big part of that whole points per game number. Yes.
Yeah. His touchdown, his pick 6 shows the level that NFL defenders operate at, and why your margin for error in this league is so insanely small. It's ridiculous. There was another one on the other side as well. Like there wasn't a human being in college football that could cover Devontae Smith at all, right? DBs, corners, safeties, linebackers, doesn't matter. Nobody on the field could get anywhere near this guy. The Saints are just casually having Demario Davis, like a linebacker, carry him down the middle of the field into the end zone and blanket him to shut down a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like the difference between college football and the NFL is insane. This is why you look at these guys like, well, they were dominant in college. How come it doesn't translate? That's why. This is another one. You look at the interception, the pick six that Trevor Siemian throws. It's not bad. Like he is looking at a guy playing off-man coverage against a comeback route, right? Essentially, this should be open. There's no reason it wouldn't be. And Slay just reads his man so fast and is waiting for it that the second that guy starts to break down and start his comeback, Slay is moving towards it, breaking on the ball, gets there in front of him, and just picks it off and takes it back. Like, nobody makes that play in college. It's just not, you know what I mean? Like, nobody is
it's
waiting.
An underneath completion. Yeah.
Nobody is waiting for it the same way. Nobody's breaking on it the same speed, and nobody is picking that off. If you're Siemian, like at the point where you sort of cock and make that throw, it's open. But in the NFL, it's a completely different animal, and it's a pick six, and you're like, Siemian, idiot. Like, it's just terrible quarterback play.
Even what you just described there was, that's a big change in the Eagles' defense. Not saying that they weren't trying to break on the ball early in the year and everything, but we're 2 weeks removed from kind of making fun of the Eagles for letting everybody complete 80% of their passes, which had been the case. There was a lot of easy underneath stuff. It was like week 1 against the Falcons. I thought they were breaking, like way back then, they were breaking on the ball quickly in their zone coverages, but there was definitely a lull in the season where everything was wide open underneath. They have cracked down a little bit these last couple weeks in Philadelphia, including Slay, the way he's been playing. So really impressive win by the Eagles. I want to get into that Packers-Vikings game. But first, don't forget Manscaped. Don't forget them.
Don't forget them.
They just launched their new products, including the all-new ultra-premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself or someone who needs it the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls. And look at that. That's up on the screen as well. This holiday season, go to manscaped.com. Use promo code PFF for 20% off plus free shipping. As it says right there, it's the right tools for the job. The Performance Package 4.0, that's the signature. It features the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your nuts. It's also waterproof, so you could use it in the shower or
the rain, like yesterday.
Yeah, like yesterday, if you were at the football game.
If you were on the sideline in the pouring rain, you could have broken out the 4.0.
That picture of Mike Vrabel just
trimmed
sitting
him
there,
right up,
sad in the rain.
Right.
It's available.
He could have been manscaping.
Could have been. They've also launched the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. As I said, that has the key ingredients with benefits that include hydrating, nourishing, conditioning the scalp, Sam, and strengthening your hair at the same time. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products, so get yourself, your dad, your brother, and friends the best gift of all. Are you going to give this to a friend? Would you give this to a friend? Why not?
Absolutely.
Why? It's a great gift for a friend. Friends take care of friends, especially with Manscaped and the Performance Package 4.0. So you get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF over at manscapes.com. It's 20% off with free shipping at manscapes.com. Use code PFF. As always, clean up your nuts and make Santa proud.
Yes.
This season.
Nothing Santa likes more than cleaned up nuts.
Jingle balls to the wall. I'm just going to add that in there as well.
I think you should.
Rest in peace from 2 years ago.
It's got to be coming down the pike, right? Like we're November 22nd.
They might have a new copywriter.
There's only like a month left.
Yeah. Well, that might just be it. It might just be the Santa line.
No, there's got to be more. You don't leave just the Santa line is amazing, don't get me wrong, but it feels like there's more to come.
That's why I add it back in. That's my own ad lib right there.
Okay. That's nice, yeah. We were told that was okay, The stuff in bold is the stuff you got to read.
There's some stuff that's required.
After that, you can say what you like. You can
natural feel.
Yeah, after that, you can start going crazy with this stuff.
Just saying. The Manscaped stuff, it's good. It's good. So consider those gifts. Appreciate it. All right, Vikings win 34-31. Was it? I just lost the click.
Yes,
34-31 over the Green Bay Packers. Incredible back-and-forth game. I hope we don't. Now, who picked? Oh, I picked Minnesota. At least I got that right. This wasn't one of those games I said it might be a defensive battle, right?
I think
Green Bay was trending in the right direction, and Minnesota was trending in the right direction, and that didn't necessarily happen. a lot of fascinating stuff in this game because Aaron Rodgers had a couple turnover-worthy plays early on that didn't necessarily come back to bite. Kirk Cousins had a few turnover-worthy plays that didn't come back to bite either.
This is one of those games where I'm claiming a moral victory. So this game went the way it was supposed to go.
Let's hear your moral victory.
Okay, I'll explain it to you. This game went exactly the way it was supposed to go. Minnesota, as they always do, jump out to a 7+ point lead. Again, extending their streak of being the only team in the NFL to have led a game by 7+ points in every single contest. Then, as is their want, they shut up shop, right? It's like, oh, look, if we air it out to Justin Jefferson, good things happen. So let's immediately stop doing that now that we've built up an impressive lead. They got lucky once when there was a miscommunication between Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. He threw an interception, and it got negated for roughing the passer, I think. So one bullet dodged. And then they allow the Packers to close right back up, take the lead, and then Cousins gets the ball back again. Immediately tries to throw the game away. Throws the ball straight to Darnell Savage, was it, who picks it off. And then on replay, we discover that, oh, look, he didn't actually pick it off. Cousins gets new life, gets the ball back, ends up winning the game. By rights, that should have been a Green Bay win with the exact game plan that every Vikings game has, which is take the lead early, choke, throw it away, and then game over. But somehow Darnell Savage screwed me. And now, Minnesota wins the game, allegedly.
Now my pick is correct.
Now look, in my adjusted game outcomes, the Packers would have won that game.
That's a deep inside joke. It's funny to me. I'm smiling on the inside.
Good. I'm glad somebody got it.
The reality of what happened was Green Bay won. So I counted it as a win.
It's a moral victory is all I'm saying.
The stat lines are incredible for both quarterbacks. Rodgers, 385 yards, 11.7 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns. Cousins, 341, 3 touchdowns himself. But again, there was some, Rodgers tried to throw a pick early, had a fumble that somehow ended up back in his arms early on. But the back and forth, Rodgers hit a ton of big time throws. That was the vintage Rodgers part. And then Valdez-Scantling with 4 catches for 123, including the 75-yarder. It's like, all right, the Vikings take the lead. Let's see if they could stop the Packers' return here. It's like, nope, one play, 75 yards. Valdez-Scantling, one-on-one. Rodgers hits him in stride, and that big playability was huge.
Was that the play? No, it wasn't that play. There was a play earlier where Rodgers essentially won with a like a fake timeout call. It was the ball was cut it was about to be snapped.
That was the double move.
Yeah,
to
except
Devontae
it wasn't
Adams.
a double. It wasn't really a double move.
Well, Devontae gave like a little shimmy.
Right, but it was Mackenzie Alexander, I think, basically just stopped playing because Rodgers called timeout, but they didn't give it to him. The ball was snapped.
Right.
And Rodgers just hit the dude over his head. But like the defense essentially stopped playing. Because, look, the quarterback's called timeout.
If you watch Alexander, he looked like he was reading a run play.
Yeah.
And all Rodgers turned to call timeout.
What he was actually
the ball
reading
was already snapped. It was actually incredible. Rodgers turns around, catches the snap, looks up, and sees Devontae wide open on the corner.
Because what he was actually reading was the fact that the quarterback called timeout and was like, the play, stop. The play's done.
Might be a good play.
That's what I'm saying.
Fake timeout.
It was accidental, but
time.
It actually worked. That's an interesting way of, you've seen Dan Marino with the fake spike or whatever. That's honestly a thing that could work.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So as much as the grades won't be amongst Kirk Cousins' best games this year, when you look at how much he was under pressure and how impactful the pressure was in this game, like Christian Darrisaw has a pass blocking grade in the 40s. Mason Cole, who in theory might be an upgrade at center over Bradbury, though that says more about Bradbury than Cole, had a pass blocking grade of 15. Ezra Cleveland in the 30s. The pass blocking was terrible, is what I'm saying. Kirk Cousins was under pressure a ton, and as much as he tried to throw the game away, at least once, arguably a couple of times, some of the plays he was making in the face of pressure were really impressive. And I do kind of wonder if it's time the Vikings embrace the idea that their quarterback is better than they think he is.
Yeah. I
think they
can.
You're paying this guy a ton of money, but you don't trust him to do what he's consistently doing at this point.
He's been one of the league's best throwing beyond the sticks, intermediate level, that 10 to 19-yard range. He's been accurate. You'll get a game like this where there's a few turnover-worthy plays in there, but again, it didn't necessarily come back to bite. We do have a good question from a listener about we can look up a little bit more, but EPA on, say, big-time throws versus turnover-worthy plays over time, is it worth it, right? Would you, again, go back to, like, would you rather have the highly volatile guy that has high both or the more conservative person that is low in both? I honestly don't think – I do think turnovers are worse than the analytics community lets on. That's, again, a further discussion. But in isolation, the EPA on a turnover is not the worst. But I think you lose the opportunity cost of, like, you lost a possession,
right,
which you only get 9, 10, 11 possessions in a game. You lost the opportunity to score on that possession. So it's not just the plays EPA, so to speak. But ultimately, yeah, because I'm going to go back to what happens when you have a Justin Jefferson on your team. When Justin Jefferson, as he has the last couple weeks, can just take over a game. And I made the comments a couple weeks ago, I think Jefferson's up in that Devontae Adams take over a game type of level. No matter where you put him, what you do with him. They had a nice touchdown, just put him in the backfield, right? Put him in the backfield, run a little angle route. I want more of that if I'm a Vikings fan. More moving Justin Jefferson around, and also just, hey, when you see one-on-one, he's your guy. He goes 8 for 169. He was only targeted 9 times. But, yeah, feed him the ball. 4.97 yards per route run in this particular game. That is efficiency times 10.
But this game is like a perfect encapsulation of where Minnesota's strengths are. When you air the ball out and when you just let Cousins let it rip to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, good things happen. When you tighten up and try and play conservative and try and kind of take the game out of Cousins' hands and, quote unquote, protect the offense by not letting him do all that stuff, that's when things don't go as well. So you're already paying this guy as if he was Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or one of these other quarterbacks. And at this point, all the data is saying that he's at that kind of level. Okay, none of us really trust it because I think there is an element of him not being that guy. But he's probably closer to that than they're giving him credit for. At which point, stop undermining yourselves by trying to take the ball out of his hands all the time. Feed Justin Jefferson, feed Adam Thielen, let Cousins be Cousins. It's the let Russ cook thing, but with Kirk Cousins instead, which is dramatically less appealing as a concept, but is actually the Vikings' best way of winning games now.
Well, it's kind of like what I described with Kirk Cousins playing a lot better football than Ben Roethlisberger right now. But early in the season, the way I was trying to describe the Steelers, your only chance to kind of stumble into a good offense is to actually be aggressive when it feels like you probably shouldn't be based off what Big Ben is. And what happens there is maybe it's ugly at times. Maybe it doesn't feel comfortable. But, neither does 3.5 yards per carry when you force Dalvin Cook, as great as Dalvin is, as a pure runner. So, yeah, I think putting the ball in Cousins' hands more often does make sense. The other play that was the key play as the Vikings were making this essentially ended the game, the short comeback route to Adam Thielen, It looked like Cousins threw it right at the cornerback. It was a crazy play. Was that Rasul Douglas in coverage against Thielen?
I don't remember.
I think it was Rasul. Essentially, the cornerback runs the comeback route for Thielen.
Yeah.
Cousins makes normally what's like a critical mistake, or you left it inside on a comeback route, but because the corner was so good running the route, it actually was thrown away from the leverage of the defender. Thielen, the corner loses track of it. Thielen catches it, runs up the sideline, puts the Vikings into field goal range. And again, they were really smart. They ran down the clock and just said, that's it. Aaron Rodgers does not get the ball back. We're just going to kick the game-winning field goal, which they did. So that was the critical play on the final drive, which was just a crazy play because it was just a throw that usually doesn't get completed, and
I don't think it was deliberate by Cousins, but if it was,
but he was under sorry, interrupt again. But he was under quick pressure. It was another one. He had to force it out, like you were saying, making throws under pressure here.
It's a pass that if it had been deliberate would be one of the passes of the season because, as you say, usually the last thing you want to do is leave a pass on any kind of outbreaking route inside because the corner is typically trailing the receiver on the play and is therefore exactly where you're about to throw the ball by mistake. But the DB, Douglas, if we were right, read that play so well that it was one of those ones, he's running the route for the receiver. He's going to break in front of him. If it's on target, quote unquote, where it's supposed to be, the ball is picked off. But the ball is actually thrown back inside. So by the time like the DB reads the play, looks up for where the ball is supposed to be, the ball is back inside behind him, and the receiver is able to react quicker. Thielen makes an amazing catch given how late he reacts to it, and all is good.
It was Douglas.
Okay.
Confirmed.
So I don't think that was deliberate. I think Cousins was just under pressure and it was a bad location. He got lucky. But if it had been deliberate, it would be like one of the most insane adjustments a quarterback has made on a pass in the entire season.
We had somebody tweet at me, hey, the Monday morning narrative last week was the Packers have the defense. This is the best defense of the Rodgers era, and the Packers have the defense to go to the Super Bowl and all that stuff. And the point that you made earlier today is like, yeah, that, you know, keep trusting defense because at some point you're going to get torched. That was this week for the Packers.
Right. And by the way, that's why if you're of the opinion that, hey, Kansas City is back, maybe tap the brakes, because right now they're back because the defense is just throttled two different teams.
No, you know that's happening right now.
I know it is. That's what I'm saying.
Our listeners, everybody's here on YouTube watching. But if there are a few people not on YouTube watching us live, they're watching ESPN shows and NFL Network shows. They're watching all these shows that are like, this is it. This is the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a defensive team now.
That's what I'm saying. Just if your take on Kansas City being back is built off the fact that their defense is suddenly playing amazingly, I would consider what can happen based off the evidence of every other defense in the NFL. The second you think a defense is amazing, they get gashed by Kirk Cousins. Like, just be careful if that's your argument. If your argument is, hey, the defense is playing better, Patrick Mahomes is back, the offense is fine, despite, lack of points in the last couple of weeks, fair enough. But if your argument is like, hey, the defense has brought the Chiefs all the way back, you probably don't want to be making that.
Anyway, next week the Packers have the Rams, so that'll be another good test. Look, I think the Packers defense is like other defenses. They're capable. I like Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage.
Yeah.
If Savage just holds on to that interception, it's like, oh, the defense made a big play when they needed it.
Green Bay is still in great shape, if for no other reason than they're getting an insane amount of reinforcements, right? At some point, heading into the playoffs, which they're going to make, they will get the best left tackle in the NFL, David Bakhtiari. They will get the best cornerback in the league from last year, Jair Alexander, and their best pass rusher, Zadarius Smith, back. In theory, all three of those guys are coming back at some point down the stretch. There's no other team in the NFL that can look on the horizon and see those kinds of reinforcements riding to the rescue. So, yeah, this was the game they wish they had, probably should have had, but they're still in great shape.
We'll get into more of the games, but first, Thanksgiving, man. This Thanksgiving, be thankful for family, food, and free bets. That's right, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They have a Turkey Day no-brainer that you can't miss. New customers can bet just $1 on any Thanksgiving NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's right, there's 3 games this Thanksgiving.
There are.
All you need to do is bet $1 on any of those games. You can win $100 in free bets. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, you could still get in on the Thanksgiving NFL action. Make your first deposit, and you could play free for millions of dollars with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest. And DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want, because there's some other sites out there where they make it difficult to withdraw your money, but not DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $1 on any Thanksgiving NFL game, and you win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's promo code PFF this Thanksgiving at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I don't think I've said Indiana right in like 10 straight reads here.
The
Stumble
terms
right
and conditions, you've blended a bunch of words together there in an interesting way.
Yeah. Look, I've been spending a lot of time on my intros. And again, the terms and conditions.
You play your terms and conditions slide? You hate to see that.
The sliders of like, where's Steve's effort going to be? It's like really high on intros, a little bit low on T&C here.
I mean, you just hate to see a guy let the terms and conditions go.
Can we get George back in here to do my terms and conditions? That guy. Do something useful around here, By the way, programming note for all those here on YouTube or listening in podcast land. just one more podcast this week. So we're not going to have the Wednesday. It's not a midweek show. It's a Wednesday preview show. We do this every year for Thanksgiving. The preview is going to come a day early, which is risky. It's going to be before we have any injury reports. But we're gonna preview the stuff. We're gonna preview the games because that's how we do it. We want it before Thanksgiving and while you're traveling, maybe on a Wednesday. So Wednesday is gonna be our Week 12 preview.
I mean, really, unfortunately, now we're tracking the picks, and we're gonna be making the picks a day earlier with no information of injuries.
With no information.
What would be a real shame, actually, is if this turned out to be like our best week of the year in terms of picks.
Yeah.
You know, we nail this week, but every other week when we actually have information is where we're a disaster.
Now, you made the point to me yesterday. We'll talk about Arizona in a minute, but when it was officially no Kyler Murray, we knew no DeAndre Hopkins, but there was no Kyler Murray, and the line hadn't moved a ton. It was like, were there people sprinting to go, like, what, Seattle at home, and Russ a week back with more healing and all this stuff, and it didn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
With Arizona.
There were a few Arizona fans in my mentions that were like, Sam picks against the Cardinals again, and then they go and win the game. It's like, look, my pick literally was if they have Kyler Murray, they win. If they don't, they probably lose. I'm okay picking against Colt McCoy, when Russell Wilson, albeit mallet-fingered Russell Wilson, is on the other side. I'm okay getting proven wrong there. I'm comfortable with that decision.
Yeah, I mean, good job, Cardinals. We'll talk about you in a bit. Baltimore Ravens 16, the Chicago Bears 13. Lamar Jackson out with illness, and how late was that scratch?
Pretty late.
Sunday, late Sunday, late.
Yes.
Before the game Sunday,
right.
Prior to the 1 o'clock game.
He said Huntley said that he found out on the bus on the way to the game.
On the bus?
Yeah.
Wow.
Getting on the bus, I think he said Lamar texted him and was like, go nuts. You're starting.
I mean, Justin Fields gets hurt for the Bears. Rib injury. He had a rib injury last year against Clemson as well.
Yes.
You have to I'll talk about Fields in a minute here. The Ravens didn't really do anything of note offensively. Huntley hung in there, made some throws, got away with a couple others, but they didn't run the ball all that well, but they found a way to win. And that's going to be huge for the Ravens because, not only is the AFC wide open, battle for the number 1 seed, wide open. Ravens moved to 7-3. They're half game behind the Titans now for that number 1 overall seed in the AFC, where nobody's great, of course, but big win for the Ravens with their backup QB.
Let me pitch you a hypothetical here.
Mm-hmm.
You are the head coach of the Chicago Bears. You have fought for a decent amount of the season to not put Justin Fields in the lineup. Eventually, your hand is forced. Fields goes in. The story so far has been up and down, but more up than down recently.
Sure.
Justin Fields been making some plays, looks good. Now you're facing the Baltimore Ravens. Fields didn't play particularly well to start with, then gets injured, knocked out of the game with a rib injury. Andy Dalton comes in as your backup. Looks reasonably well, makes a couple of big plays to Darnell Mooney, and puts you in the lead, which you eventually lose to Tyler Huntley and the Ravens. Drop the game. After the game, the inevitable question comes up in your press conference. So, Andy Dalton comes in, almost leads a victory. Who's the starting quarterback going forward? Your answer.
It's Justin Fields' team. As long as Justin is healthy, Justin Fields is our starter. Yeah.
What do you think Matt Nagy said?
Oh, man, I didn't see it. I didn't know that this was a thing.
Yeah.
What did he say?
Refused to confirm either way who the starting quarterback would be going forward. I don't understand how he's so bad at this. How can you not see that coming?
I tried to defend him so much during the season. I tried to defend him all offseason.
I honestly think that the single biggest problem he has is that it's answering questions from people that are really easy.
Just need somebody to prep him. Hey, Matt, 2 quarterbacks played today. They might ask you who's going to start next game.
When they do, for the love of God, say Justin Fields.
Let's go over this. Who's your starting quarterback? It's up in the no. It's Justin Fields. Who's your starting quarterback?
They need the like the press officer, the PR guy. You know the way in college football you get the giant cue cards. Like the A3 sheets where they hold them up and it's like bear, triangle. It just gives them the play call, right? You need the press officer needs to be at the back of the conference. Fields.
It says Justin with like a big football field. Justin.
Just a picture of a field in England somewhere. Just a dude sitting there with a giant card. I don't understand how you can screw that up. Like, it's so simple. It's so obviously coming the second this happens. And you're like, we'll play it by ear.
The hit that Fields took to get hurt wasn't egregious.
It looked like he got concussed or something. And then they were like, no, it's a rib injury.
Yeah, it wasn't like that big of a hit. It wasn't one that made you say, wow, or anything. I don't think. But I've been worried about the hits that Fields takes. And I keep saying that quarterbacks staying healthy, other than the freak mallet finger injuries, there's freak injuries where your hand hits helmets, but there's hits that you take that you can avoid.
Yes.
And I don't think Fields has been good at avoiding hits, just like I don't think Carson Wentz and Josh Allen have been good at avoiding hits. There are some guys who just don't do it all that well. If you watch Justin Herbert on Sunday Night Football, that dude is sliding at the first sign of trouble and doing a pretty good job of – but Fields has to do a better job of that. Like, just take it. Again, this wasn't an egregious one, but they add up. And I think if he's going to be the long-term guy in Chicago and have Matt Nagy say his name as the starting quarterback, man, just take care of yourself a little bit better.
Yeah. Justin Fields took 3 sacks in this game. Andy Dalton had 1, and Andy Dalton played a lot more. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between the way those two guys play the game, and as much as Justin Fields clearly brings some things to the table that Andy Dalton doesn't have in the tool bag, it's not without negatives. And, like, you could make an argument that Justin Fields was the 3rd best quarterback in this game, and one team didn't start their starter. Like, Lamar Jackson didn't play, and Justin Fields still may have been the 3rd best quarterback on the field in this game. So, look, the Justin Fields thing has been moving in the right direction. And, like, he's got one of the highest big-time throw rates in the NFL. Like, the high end of Justin Fields is incredible. And is obviously why he should still be your starter going forward. God damn it. Why? Anyway. But the negatives have still got to be ironed out. Like, he does take too many sacks. He doesn't protect himself particularly well. The stuff that he's bad at is still problematic.
The throw on the run to Darnell Mooney was beautiful. By the way, Mooney showing his potential in this one.
Right,
I mean, legitimate. When you watched Mooney at Tulane, you saw 4.3 speed and the ability to attack the football in the air. Just really good ball skills. You kind of saw all that on display here. But again, just because I feel like when we talk about Justin Fields, we don't talk between you and I. We talk like to the Twitter folks that we see. We talk to the football community, and most of our football community is anti Andy Dalton as well, right? They're like, Andy Dalton is terrible, right? And he's not. Like, he's not terrible, and it's not crazy to think that Andy Dalton is a better quarterback right now than Justin Fields. Throw for throw, play for play, Andy Dalton is going to give you more efficient football. But if you're the Chicago Bears, that's not the goal here, right? You're 3-7 now. The goal is to do what you can to get Justin Fields to be better than Andy Dalton, which is still a thing that's on the table. So you have to develop Justin Fields.
Yes. And by the way, the fact that they lost this game should have absolutely put the nail in the coffin of anything other than saying Fields is your quarterback.
Right, they're not in the hunt. There's no more in the hunt here.
If they had won this game, maybe you could at least see why in his brain he would be like, we're still not out of the playoffs, and Andy Dalton might give us a better chance to win the game. And but you didn't. You lost. You're out of the playoff picture effectively, even if technically you're still in the hunt. Like, you're done. At which point Justin Fields is the only thing to gain from the remainder of the season. So you say he is the starter.
Anyway, on the other side with the Ravens, Huntley leads the game-winning drive late, kind of gets away with chucking it up to a safety, gets bailed out by a penalty. And look, I still think the Bears defense has Khalil Mack's out for the season, by the way, too. They were without a lot of good football players. A lot of good football players hurt for the Bears in this one. So that's the other. It was a tough situation for Fields or Dalton at quarterback or the Bears defense in general. But gritty, gutty win for the Ravens. They lead the game-winning drive with a little bit of luck there with Huntley. He got sacked 6 times as well. His pocket presence wasn't the best. But he was a guy who had a pretty good career at Utah. I know you were really impressed with him in the preseason. And I think, if the Cowboys won a game with a backup quarterback, Ravens win a game with a backup quarterback.
Those really is
huge games here in the grand scheme of things.
He really is like a budget Lamar Jackson. It's like stylistically they are very similar.
And you didn't always see that at Utah, but I think like he's athletic and can move around and everything. But he threw the ball really well. I mean, that is Lamar too. I mean, you have those skills, but you want to pass first. That is Huntley.
He is absolutely a poor man's Lamar Jackson, to the point where you can see plays that they're running for him that are Lamar Jackson plays, and it just doesn't quite work the same way. You know what I mean? Even for a guy who's really, it shows how special Lamar is.
Oh yeah.
That even for a guy who's really athletic, like Tyler Huntley, he doesn't have the same ability to just make people miss and look ridiculous. So you've got these plays, you're like, oh, there's a crease there, Lamar would be gone, and Huntley isn't, even though he's like a freaky athlete and amazing in his own right. I also I watched the interview with him after the game. I forget who was giving it, but they're basically, and I don't know, there was, in this world of like cynicism and misery and everything being terrible, you listen to him be interviewed, and it was just nice. You know what I mean? They interviewed him, and I was like, when did you find out? And he was like, first thing he did was credit, I think, the defense or maybe the offensive line, something other than himself. You know what I mean?
Had the good answers, right?
Yeah, not even the good answers, but they were just like wholesome. He was thanking people that weren't him, said the first thing he was going to do was call his mom and dad after the game. It's like, it was just a feel-good thing. It's like, there's a guy who got a chance to start a game randomly out of nowhere, didn't play amazingly, didn't play terribly, got the win, and he's just happy about it. It was just nice to see.
Is he your new Jacoby Brissett? Big Tyler Huntley fan here?
I mean, I like Tyler. I now like him as a person more than I like him as a football player. Jacoby Brissett is just fun to watch because it's like it's like a car crash. But Huntley he's exciting to watch because he's a dynamic playmaker, even if it doesn't always go the way it should do. And I'm now like rooting for the guy because of that interview, because he seems like an awesome dude.
We definitely get caught up in like just focusing on the game and how did this guy play, and we've got a grade that kind of like paints the picture of how he played and all that stuff. But finding out that you're starting that late, as much as you're the backup quarterback and you're always prepared, right? And you knew that Lamar was sick throughout the week and all that stuff. That's a challenging thing though, man. I mean, it's not only your first real opportunity here, but it's just you find out late in the process.
You were prepared to write off one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time because he couldn't practice with his teammates for a while. Like, this is a dude who's backup, who barely practices with them ever, is just thrown into a game and be like, go beat the Bears.
Yeah, and they did. So obviously, huge win for the Ravens. They moved to 7-3, and we might look back on this one the same way we might look back on the Cooper Rush game as just huge when it comes to playoff seeding this season. All right, we got to talk about this Browns-Lions game at some point, I guess. I'm trying to avoid that.
Sure.
13-10. Browns win against the Lions.
Yeah.
What did we both picked Cleveland. They didn't cover.
They won though. So
they did win.
This is one of those occasions where the money line
we looked good. We nailed it. Good. We nailed it.
Got it right.
Absolutely nailed
Browns
it.
1, Lions 0.
This was
miserable.
Yeah. So ESPN's QBR, I like to look at it just as a reference. Obviously, PFF grades the best performance evaluation tool when it comes to isolating the quarterback. But I think when you look at QBR, because it involves EPA and it's a pretty good feel for like what did you see results-wise. It's a little bit more result-driven, I would say. Baker Mayfield and Tim Boyle, the two quarterbacks in this game, the two worst QBRs of the week. And they were just like, Tim Boyle was a 5.7, which is about as bad as you get. And Baker was a 13.4, which is, I'm sorry, when you adjusted for who you're playing, it was a 6.7 versus an 8.6. I'll have to ask our friends over at ESPN if they've ever had a QB matchup where both quarterbacks were under 10 in QBR, and like after you adjust for who they were playing. But that's pretty poor. Again, it's a little bit more results-driven, and air yards and sacks matter, a little bit, whatever. It just means you watched a pretty bad offensive football game. And that was about what happened here.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield was bad again. Like, when you're looking at all these passes from Baker to OBJ, and like, why is it just off? Even when OBJ's open, Baker Mayfield's airmailing it, or like, it's just the connection is bad. Well, apparently Baker's translating that to every other receiver now. Like, wide open, Jarvis Landry on a post route. Baker just sails it like 3 yards over his head straight to a DB. What is wrong with you? Now, okay, there are things wrong with you. Like you've got a torn labrum in your shoulder. That's not going away. At one point, they drew up one of those like the show me where he touched you type of things, right? The body image of Baker Mayfield and drew up all of the injuries that he had this year. And it's like everywhere. Everything hurts. Everything on Baker Mayfield is broken. That has to be factoring into how bad he's playing the game right now. There's no way that it isn't. But when a guy goes out onto the field, you almost have to suspend knowledge of that stuff. You're like, well, he's out there, so you have to evaluate his play.
Yeah.
And when Baker Mayfield is out there right now, his play is bad. Throwing the ball to DBs way too often.
You also somewhat have to adjust for your injury, right? And so I think there's a difference between an injury that's like legitimately affecting your throw and your accuracy, and maybe there's a factor there. But I think part of quarterbacking is, or just football in general, is not only playing injured, but knowing how to adjust for that. So
and also
if you can't make certain throws or hit certain parts of the field or throw a certain distance or with certain velocity, you adjust off that.
But also the team needs to understand that as well. Like they need to start crafting an offensive game plan that somehow protects Baker better than he's protecting himself right now. By the way, like the difference in this game, what was it, 13-10?
Yeah.
Like the margin for victory was Jarvis Landry on a trick play, what was supposed to be
running it in.
Right, what was supposed to be essentially a pass from Landry, realizing that it's gone to hell and scrambling for a touchdown instead. And Landry, by the way, is one of those players that has a stupidly good record of trick play quarterback stuff. You know what I mean? And apparently he can add, like, even when it breaks down, he can scramble and make something happen to that. But that's the difference between the Browns beating the Lions or not.
Landry's an interesting player because, again, I'm speaking to the fantasy football community mostly here, who they've looked at his combine measurables and all that stuff and say, well, he's slow and he doesn't do anything well from like a measurable standpoint, so he never projected well. But some of the work we've done behind the scenes using some of the next gen stats, technology has shown he's actually way faster on the field. Like his on-field play is just better, and our grades have always said, yeah, he's better than whatever you would have expected from the way he moves and all that stuff, from a measurable standpoint. Anyway, the Browns had a pretty good run game again. Offensive line everything was good up front, but they didn't put points on the board again because the pass game was so efficient. So Baker having another below-average game, 51 passing grade for Baker Mayfield. I mean, injury or not, back-to-back poor weeks for him after his best game against the Bengals, and now it looks like he just needs a number one wide receiver.
Wow.
If the Browns could just get Baker Mayfield a number one.
Stop it.
So all I'm saying is it's putting the Browns further into a bind here. As we're in week 11, Baker's running out of time to prove that he's the guy, or to give any confidence that he's the guy to build around here.
I don't know how, if he continues to play like this this is the problem we said. Like, he's going to play the rest of this year hurt, and he's almost certainly going to play badly because of it, or at least worse than he's played over the last few years. At which point, how do you fold that in to any kind of contract negotiations and get a deal done? Because even if you're going to put some kind of asterisk next to it, knowing that he was playing through a torn labrum in his shoulder all year, but it can't possibly do anything other than have a negative effect on your opinion of him. It can't enhance what you think of Baker Mayfield, right? Him playing badly through a shoulder injury.
I think the bigger issue for the Browns is I don't think we were wrong in saying they had a really nice offseason. They've had a really nice couple off seasons building their team. They do have this really good offensive line. They do have good running backs. They have had many games where they've been able to win with the run game. I think they made the right moves in the secondary, even though they've been a roller coaster ride there. I think we were right in saying the Browns had a good offseason. They built a good roster. I think internally they're going to look around at their roster and say, we're making the right moves. We have confidence in our ability to make the right moves going forward. I think they're going to look at that and also say, Stefanski's done a pretty nice job, and we've created an offense where the QB can be a passenger. And that has won in the NFL before. You could make the argument that Sean McVay's offense and Kyle Shanahan's offense is a passenger-driven. It's not a QB-driven offense. It's QB's a passenger. You've created this ecosystem where quarterbacks can have success. And the Browns might look around at that and say, we can find another passenger besides Baker Mayfield. And we could also find one maybe on the cheap compared to him. You know, if you dropped Jimmy Garoppolo there, or you dropped maybe not Goff at this point, you know, but Marcus, I keep pointing back to Marcus Mariota. Like, if Marcus Mariota was the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, are they the same team?
Yeah.
For much cheaper?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they might be. So look, there's still more time for Baker to like play through it and have a game or two where he carries this offense, but I feel like we're really running out of time to see that.
I mean, there's no way the Browns are not at least exploring every possible option at quarterback at this point.
Sure.
But I still think that I wouldn't rule out the idea that Baker Mayfield is their quarterback of the future, but I would imagine they are looking at every possible alternative before they commit any kind of money to making that
because
happen.
Again, in analytics-driven, that's so overrated. Every team's making these decisions, and they're using data, and they're trying to figure this out. But I think the Browns certainly will see the value of, okay, we put him on a completely different pay scale versus we can have another rookie contract quarterback, which brings risk. There is risk in there, especially if you're the Browns and you have that stigma of we've never had a guy as good as Baker Mayfield in 20 years. That's right. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
But you have to separate yourself from that and say, in today's ecosystem, can we find someone else comparable? Yeah. And I think based off how Baker's playing right now, it is available.
At this point, pretty much every shred of evidence would say you should not hand Baker Mayfield a monster contract. There is a better pathway. You just have to find whatever that pathway is to make that happen.
Get a couple years ago, Derek. There's so much time to talk about Baker Mayfield contracts. But
on the other side of the ball, Tim Boyle, not so good.
He had 3 turnover-worthy plays, a lot of them accuracy-driven. He was just off. I mean, he had a pretty bad college career and had a lot of hype in training camp and a pretty good preseason.
College career.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Like he had like 4 touchdowns and 13 picks or something. It was a ridiculous career.
Tim Boyle aside, I think Jared Goff is better than Tim Boyle. Neither guy can do anything in this offense. You know, I don't know that we're getting a good I think we're getting a good gauge of anybody here. Because
the one player we're getting a good gauge of is Penei Sewell, who has been successful kicking back to right tackle, which could have gone terribly. Like, the guy had been playing pretty well at left tackle. Remember, preseason was an absolute train wreck on the right side, and we were like, oh, you can't ask him to play right tackle. Put him back on the left side. Taylor Decker injury opened that up. He'd been playing well. Decker comes back, so the plan is you flip Penei Sewell back to the right side, and presumably at that point are prepared to struggle or suffer through, half a season of him being a disaster so that in the future he will be a good right tackle. It actually hasn't been a problem at all. He's flipped back. He's had 2 of his better games of the season at right tackle. Literally hasn't given up a pressure in the last 2 weeks at right tackle, and they can at least feel good about that move because now you got Taylor Decker at left tackle, Penei Sewell at right tackle, and you're good. So there you go. There's a shred of positivity for the Lions.
We're just going to do Penei Sewell watch every single week.
I mean, if you can come up with something else to talk about for them, then be my guest.
Yeah. Oh, there's not much else. I mean, look, there's they are further in line for that number 1 overall pick. True. I think the quarterback decision that they're going to make will be fascinating because I don't know that there's a clear cut. By early January, there might just be this consensus like, hey, it's Matt Corral. Hey, it's Malik Willis. We don't know. Sam Howell's the guy. Like, I don't know where they're going to go. That is the first time in recent years, right, that we have not known exactly, right? Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. There was a point where Kyler Murray just took over as the number. That's 3 straight years we kind of like knew who the prize was somewhat early. We don't know who the prize is for the Lions, but we'll have plenty of off-season time to discuss it. Where are we going next? I lost my place. Give me a game we've missed. Where's that page? Where are all my games?
How hard is this?
I don't know. I had a page with all the... No, I just clicked the wrong button. Just pause. Just pause the live video.
Yeah.
Miami 24, Jets 17. Another game we have to discuss.
Excellent.
Even if briefly. Joe Flacco got fumbled on an unblocked pressure.
Yeah, a blitz.
That's all you wanted. Unblocked, yeah.
That's
all you wanted to see.
Well, Joe Flacco gets the start because the Miami Dolphins are a very blitz-heavy team. And you need a quarterback like Joe Flacco to be able to deal with the blitz because God knows Mike White wouldn't be able to do that. So it is rather poetic that Joe Flacco fumbles the ball deep in the red zone, I think, on an unblocked blitz that he didn't see and got hit from behind. It's like Mike White probably could have done that, you know? Now, to be fair, Joe Flacco didn't have the worst stats in the world against the blitz, and Miami did blitz quite a lot. Now, the grade is torpedoed because of that stupid fumble that actually, I don't know whether we charged him for that. But anyway, the grade wasn't great. The stats were okay. So you can kind of make an argument that, hey, it did sort of work. But you lost the game, and what did you gain out of it anyway? It just, what was the purpose? What was the point of Joe Flacco in this game? What did you gain out of it?
Culture.
You gained culture.
You're trying to win. You're trying to win.
You could have been trying to win with Mike White. Man's a Hall of Famer. Jersey's hanging in the Hall of Fame.
That's true. On the other side, Tua, another one of those games where he's pretty efficient on the underneath stuff. Only attempted 4 passes beyond 10 yards in this one for Tua. One of them, the touchdown to Mac Hollins, the great Mac Hollins, love that guy. Pretty nice play by Tua to create space. One of those underrated plays. He's under pressure. He created enough space he was wide open. Mac was wide open, but to get the ball to him took some maneuvering from Tua in the pocket, which was good. It just, other than that, there's really no big time throws, no special from Tua. Just the efficient underneath stuff, and we'll continue the Jimmy Garoppolo comp here.
Yeah,
with Tua. Jimmy G.
Miami are becoming a really interesting team because they were so bad. What do they have, like 6 straight losses or something?
Yeah.
They were so bad that we wrote them off. You're like, Miami's done. It's next year. We're moving on. Because the AFC and the NFL generally is such chaos, what are they? They're 4-7 right now. They could easily be 500
in the hunt
based off their next 3 games, right? They just beat the Jets. Then they get Carolina, the Giants, and the Jets again. So if they win those 3 games, they're back to 500, with their final 3 games being at New Orleans, at Tennessee, and then home against the Patriots in week 18. The 17th game in week 18. It's not inconceivable that the Dolphins are still in this, in a real way, which is ridiculous given where they were.
So they say, and again, I don't know how they do this how you make this on purpose, right? But they say that the NFL, for parity's sake, right, set up the schedule to kind of create that. So again, Dolphins playoff team last year should have been ascending and all that stuff, and they lose a bunch of games against, they lose to some pretty good teams along the way. But they're still what a lot of teams are what we thought they were. They just play their schedule at, uneven times. You go through tough stretches, you go through easier stretches. And it's not to say that the Dolphins are going to win every game and, they just have had rough luck. But to your point, they've got all these winnable games, and they're going to get back closer to what we thought they were. They were an 11-win team last year, which always felt, or 10-win team. They won double-digit wins, double digits last year, 10 wins, I believe it was, right?
Yeah.
They never felt like a 10-win team. They felt more like a 500 team at best. You're right. They could creep right back up to 500 and be a similar team as last year, that's what they felt like coming into the season. But you have to win these games, and they did.
It would be huge for them, I think, for the kind of the staff that they have there, because this was a season that started and looked like it might be heading in a way that could get everybody fired. And you're like, honestly, I think the Miami Dolphins are moving in the right direction. They've made some mistakes that are coming back to haunt them right now. But the worst thing that could happen to them is that this season unspools so badly that you're like, right, clear house, fire everybody. You made a mess. You screwed it up. You had a 10-win team, and now you've made a balls of it. Everybody out.
Everybody out.
If nothing else, they are dragging themselves back to the point where you can at least seriously just evaluate, okay, why did we take a step back? Even if they didn't really, the kind of quiet part under your breath is that, hey, look, you actually dramatically overachieved last year, and maybe you underachieved a bit this year, but maybe your team was basically the same. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
But at least like if you get to the point where you can evaluate, you can come to that conclusion and figure out how you take the next step. They might have the fact that they won these games, I think, is a good thing to save people's jobs and at least be able to like figure out how to move forward.
The Jets, just to wrap up the Dolphins really quick. Where are we on Tua again?
Nobody knows. Nobody.
Just for perspective, using QBR again, which again would give the place where Tua's biggest strength. The best thing we could say about him is he's not getting sacked a lot behind this offensive line. You went into it.
He makes a horrific offensive line look better than it is.
You went into it in great detail on the preview podcast. I thought you laid it out pretty well, that the historic level that this Dolphins pass blocking unit is on pace for.
It's wretched.
The QBR, again, ESPN's QBR does a good job of crediting those quarterbacks who don't get sacked, whether it's their fault or not. Again, it lacks some context. Tua's up to 10th in ESPN's QBR. Okay, so it's in large part because he's adding a little bit of value on the ground and then just not losing value from getting sacked, and he's generally completing passes. Where he's lower in our grades, in part because he's just not making a ton of throws down the field, and he's had some turnover luck early on. He got away with some stuff, but he's just not making throws down the field. And even when you look at those 4 passes, and there you go. If you want our data, our stats, you get 25% off using the promo code NFLPod. But the 4 throws that he threw beyond the sticks. We're talking a flea flicker that was wide open. We're talking a rollout, wheel route, like it's schemed up. Like at some point, Tua's just got to hit a deep out, and he's got to hit a deep comeback, and he's got to hit a dig route. And those passes, it just makes the margin of error for this Dolphins offense is just so small. And I don't know if that's Tua. I don't know if it's the offensive line. And they're just like, hey, just go out there and complete 5-yard passes and don't get sacked, and we're going to protect you. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but that's the one thing I need to see more from him.
He is a classic quarterback so Tim Boyle can have the kind of college career that I would expect you to put up if you went out there playing quarterback, right? Like the numbers are miserable. There's like no redeeming features whatsoever. It's ridiculous. It's not at a good program. It's not like he did this at Alabama and you can go, well, he was a blue blood. Like this was a guy that nobody wanted to play at crappy colleges badly. And the NFL looks at him and goes, yeah, but he's big and 230 pounds and has a strong arm, so let's take him anyway. Let's kick the tires on this thing. Tua is the exact opposite, where you look at him and you're like, he's small, has not a great arm, and it just looks difficult. But he's actually playing quite well. So you get his first touchdown, I think, is a perfect example of this, where there's pressure coming from his right. He sort of scoots up in the pocket away from the pressure, shrugs it off, has a wide the hell open guy deep down the field, but then has to put like a Fitzpatrick level of life force into the ball just to get it 5 yards underthrown. Yeah. Right? That's like,
I love that play. I mean, I love that play from him.
It's a great play, but it just perfectly shows the limitations that he has, where it's like you did everything right and it still needed a lot of help to get there, right? It was an underthrown pass that needed nobody to be anywhere near the dude and the guy to scoot down the sideline, avoid getting pushed out of bounds for it to be a touchdown. It's like Tua just has a smaller margin of error than quarterbacks like Nick Boyle, Tim Boyle, who just have all the
similar
tools.
Quarterbacks.
Maybe they are similar quarterbacks, but just a smaller margin of error than quarterbacks who have all the physical tools to work with. And if you're not incredible, if you're not Joe Burrow, maybe a good comp. Joe Burrow doesn't have the best physical tools in the world, but he's clearly really good. He's able to do all the things. He's accurate enough. He's able to process quick enough. And the fact that Joe Burrow doesn't have a Josh Allen type cannon matters less. Tua is not as good as Joe Burrow right now, and he's dealing with a much worse situation in terms of offensive line in front of him. And it's really hard to construct the case that Tua should be your quarterback going forward. Now, it's easier to construct a case that he could be, but if you're the Dolphins now and you're let's say you get to the end of the season, you've kind of pulled this thing out of the fire, you've ended up somewhere around 500, and you're now doing the self-scouting off-season evaluation thing. what is your conclusion?
Yeah, one other data point to add to that. 3 PFF passing grades. The 3 best ones for Tua against the Jaguars, the Falcons, and the Jets.
Yeah.
Like really 3 of the 5 worst defenses when it comes to, pass defense in the league.
Right.
And again, like a lot of our grades will adjust, automatically adjust, but I mean it's easier against those defenses. And he's graded in the 50s from a passing grade against week 2 against the Bills was a small sample, but against the Patriots in week 1, against the Ravens with came in with the injury, and then also against the Bills. So when he played good defense, half decent defenses, he wasn't good. When he played bad defenses, he's been okay. He's been good. So yeah, there's still more to see when it comes to Tua right now. But Dolphins win, and like you said, might be in the hunt. Let's touch on 49ers thrashing the Jaguars 30-10 here.
Thrashing.
Niners rolling, man, and against took care of business. Took care of business against the Jaguars on the road. Jimmy Garoppolo remains the best road quarterback of all time.
Yeah. I mean, the best part about this game from a San Francisco point of view is this was the dreaded, East Coast 10 a.m. game. This was
they came out firing. Didn't matter.
Yeah. This was the most awkward sort of cross-country, weird time zone game for a team, and they came out and were pretty comfortable, was never in doubt, and just easily dispatched the Jags.
Leading rusher Deebo Samuel, I mean, I just love. Last year you were talking all about Tin Cup and Kyle Shanahan making do with what he was given. A lot of running back injuries, and usually he just plugs in any running back and the scheme takes care of it. It hasn't necessarily been the case in recent weeks, but instead it's been Deebo Samuel that they just throw in the backfield and give him 8 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. So I like that adjustment that the Niners are making there.
I mean, Deebo is really good. This is the game that kind of showed you what this offense, well, the last few weeks have done this, but it showed you what the offense can be. Jimmy Garoppolo plays well enough that he doesn't screw it up. Deebo Samuel is your kind of jack-of-all-trades weapon that can move all over the formation. He can be a number 1 receiver, or he can be the guy you plug into the backfield and give all the gimmick carries to. When he does that, Brandon Ayuk can be your number 1 receiver. And Ayuk had a game with a ton of targets, caught everything, had a decent yardage, had the touchdown. And then, George Kittle and Trent Williams just erasing people in the run game. They have an unconventional group of receivers and playmakers generally, but they can be really good. There's enough incredible talent on this offense to dominate teams like the Jags.
Yeah, when they're all healthy and Ayuk is there, right? Playing they got him in space a couple times. You see the athleticism, right? I mean, they do have a lot of potential there offensively. They're in the hunt. They
threw Trent Williams a pass in the end zone. I'm so sad it didn't come off. Poor guy was blanket covered by Miles Jack, but God, I wanted that play to happen. The dude tried to high point it as well. He's like, I don't care if it's 3 yards ahead of me. I'm going to try and one-hand this thing up in the air.
How many offensive linemen saw Robert Hunt last Thursday night? They're like, all right, we practiced this one time in training. Dust it off. Let's go. We can't let Robert Hunt steal all the O-line, athletic plays.
The best part about that was, it was never open. Miles Jack covered Trent Williams, shockingly enough, and it was never really an option. Safe throwaway, I guess, is the term. But the way, when a receiver runs 80 yards downfield on a post route and then has to sub himself off for the next play because, he's just sprinted 100 yards. Trent Williams was like, I'm out. It's in the shadow of the goal line. We still need to punch this thing in. And Trent Williams was like, sub, I need the oxygen. I just ran 8 yards on a corner route. I need a break.
One of these days I'm just going to go back, and finally watch all of his run block key plays, because 98.5 run blocking grade this year.
His run
97.6 overall. Trent Williams, I think that's going to break. That's going to break our tackle record, right? That high.
Almost certainly. Yes.
I don't think we've had anybody at 97 plus.
Through 10 weeks, it is the highest we've ever seen.
Yeah. So, again, if you guys have premium stats, 2.0, all part of your PFF Elite package for 25% off. You could get it for NFL Pod using NFL Pod. Go check out those grades that Trent Williams has. It is as dark as a dark blue can get and as elite as it gets, and his run blocking has been next level this season.
Yeah, and in all areas. It's incredible on the move. He's
receiving grade's going to take a hit.
Yes.
But He doesn't.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You see, so in this game, for example, 80-plus grades as a run blocker and a pass protector, but a grade of 57.7 as a receiver.
Yeah. And that's the type of breakdown you're getting.
I mean, look, if he'd been able to pull it in one-handed, then maybe that grade would have been above 90 as well. But unfortunately, he wasn't.
Got to go up and get it.
But, like, so in all areas of the run game as well, there was one play where he had, I think he had to get to a guy that was outside shaded on him, and just grabbed hold of the dude and, like, swung him to the inside. And it was like, right, now you're out of the play. You're done. And that was like the dude supposed to be setting the edge on the run. You know, there's nobody in the league that can do that. Literally nobody else in the NFL can do that the way he's doing it. Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, those guys, you know, can do that from the guard position. But the stuff that he's doing as a tackle right now is nuts.
Absolutely love it. I don't have much on the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence didn't have any turnover-worthy plays, didn't have any disastrous plays.
Hang the banner.
What?
Hang the banner.
Yeah, seriously. Offense tough to watch right now.
Yeah.
That's about it for the Jags.
It's bad.
And the Niners defense, to their credit, they've been better the last 2 weeks. Did it against the Rams. Yeah, Jags this week. But Niners moved to 5-5 in the hunt like everyone else in the NFC.
Yeah.
The last 1 o'clock game here, Houston Texans 22, Tennessee Titans 13. Speaking of hanging the banner, go ahead, man.
Look, you see, this is where the money line thing screws us again. And it's like, I picked Tennessee.
Oh, look, well, you might be a liar.
But if you listen to the show, you listen to it. The
So
very
you think
first,
we're missing nuance here?
I do.
This is fake news.
The
Headline-driven fake news right here.
The first minute of our analysis on this game was me explaining that I think there is a very real chance that the Houston Texans spring a ridiculous upset, and then illustrated why.
You're asking people in this world of social media snippets and bite-sized information, and people who only want to read headlines and only want to read what's fed to them and not do any further research or understand nuance and everything. You want them to look at this screen right here where it says, Sam picked Tennessee.
Yeah.
And you're going to try to explain to them that, well, actually, I picked Houston. I was right. Actually, I nailed it. It says I picked Tennessee, but if you dig a little deeper, which no one wants to do, dig a little deeper, you'll see I got this thing right. I mean, that's what you want people to do right now?
I did tweet out the evidence. There's a video that I tweeted where I proved that I predicted this. Really what I'm asking the guys in the booth to do, right, is to essentially take the picks, money line and against the spread, and pick whichever one makes us look better, right? So on a given game.
Yeah, I think
there are some where the money line pick is the one we want. And then
you
there are
guys
some
got to
games
do the research
where against the spread makes us look smarter. So in this game, against the spread makes me look smarter. You look like an idiot whatever you do.
Oh, I was off. I was wrong.
But on this game, the against the spread pick would make me look smarter.
Even if they just put Sam picked 10, comma, but he really predicted, I wouldn't be surprised if Houston pulled an upset here, especially with Tyrod at quarterback.
Or
That's what they could have put up on the screen.
Put Sam picked and then it correct.
It correct.
Yeah.
Sam, so go ahead.
That's why we could go
Give
with.
your victory lap for why you picked Tennessee, yet you also picked Houston.
I mean, it went exactly the way it was supposed to for me. The Titans didn't really show up in this game. It was a weird game from start to finish. The Texans they had it in hand. Like, this really wasn't that close. And then weirdly, because obviously it's Houston and they're not very good, like late in the game, they're trying to throw it away a little bit. You're like, there is plenty of time left on the clock for them to screw this up. But it was another game where weather definitely played a factor. Tannehill had 7 turnover-worthy plays. 7.
Yeah.
That is do you know off the top of your head, like, what is the highest amount in a game from a player? It's got to be close.
Something John Skelton did, almost certainly. No, I think so. The Josh Freeman off the couch, was it
Vikings
for the Giants?
Game? No, Vikings, right?
He was on the Vikings or the Giants?
He was
for the Vikings against the Giants.
Maybe.
Josh Freeman came off the couch to play a football game for a team I can't read. Was it the Vikings?
He definitely played for the Vikings and had a terrible game. I don't know if that's the one you're thinking of.
I think it was a primetime game where he just showed up off the couch and had one of the worst games we've ever seen. Context, of course, is important. And I can't remember if it was just because he missed every throw or if he had 10 turnover-worthy plays or whatever in there as well. Maybe our crack research team, which is usually like Ben working through games.
I'm sure Ben's not busy right now.
Ben's going to fire up Ultimate right now.
And as the games fly in.
Just load it up back to 06 and find the turnover-worthy plays by week. But 7's it's a big number for Tannehill. 4 actual interceptions. And it wasn't just, whether early on the pick where he just completely misread a linebacker.
But the weather was part of it, and it was another one of those games where, again, when weird results like this happen, it's always because a bunch of weird things happen. Just a confluence of events. So, the Titans trying to drive before halftime to get some points on the board and make this a closer game, and start the comeback. Like intentional grounding just before halftime, 10-second runoff, game's over. Or half is over, rather. So you go from we may be driving to put some points on the board to actually know the half is done because you screwed up. Then the Titans, the punt returner makes a complete balls of the punt return. Decides he's not going to field it, turns around, tries to block the gunner, and the ball hits him in the heel. And all of a sudden, the Texans are set up and 1st and goal, ready to go again. Tyrod Taylor played well. A lot of things needed to happen for this team, for this game to go the way it went.
Yeah, it's a huge. It's a big factor that just happens sometimes in football games. That's tough to predict, but you nailed it. You got it. You knew that stuff was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, except the pick.
There is the bigger picture item here is the Titans. So the Titans are 8-3. We had mentioned since they lost Derrick Henry, they had the Rams game, they had the pick 6, pick goes to the 5. The offense did not move the ball very well against the Rams. And then even against the Saints last week, got bailed out a little bit by a call here and there. And the offense did not move the ball great against the Saints defense, which actually just got torched. So concerns about the Titans offense now, post Derrick Henry. You didn't see this game very often when Derrick Henry was the running back. 52 attempts for Ryan Tannehill, plus a couple sacks, so they dropped back a ton. You did not see that often, despite my asking at times that, put the ball in Tannehill's hands.
They don't listen to you.
Well, maybe they shouldn't. There have been times I've said maybe there are games you don't want to rely on Derrick Henry so much, and you do want to put the ball in Tannehill's hands and spread it out and attack defenses that are better on the ground. And boy, this just did not work in this one.
No.
They scored 13 points with the and again, I know game flow, you throw the ball a little bit more when you're down and all that stuff, but it doesn't feel like this is how the Titans want to play football.
No, it isn't. This is not how they want to get things done, particularly when it's in a rainstorm, or not a rainstorm, but particularly when it's wet, there's a lot of rain, and you're not playing well because of it. This was fascinating because Houston had been leading the whole game essentially. Then the Titans just start to get back into it. They score a touchdown. It's now 19-13. There's 8 minutes left on the clock essentially, and you're like, here it comes, right? This is the collapse, the fact that there was so much time left on the clock still. Here's where Houston throw it away. Then with the start of that drive, the Houston Texans get 3rd and 1, run up the middle, no gain. 4th and 1 from your own 34-yard line against a team that you're a 10-point underdog against, who you've been beating the whole way. You're like, we're kind of riding our luck. Do you want to give the ball back to the team that's clearly better than we are? Having had them just score, they score again, they take the lead, and the entire thing has been for nothing. 4th and 1 from your own 34, they punt the ball away. That is one of the most gutless calls that any coach has made so far this season. Now, look, there's 6 minutes left on the clock. It's not like that first down wins you the game, but why would you punt that ball away? You have to back your offense and say, we need to keep this ball, and that's how you have to play those ways. That level of aggression is how you're supposed to beat a team like Tennessee when you've been not riding your luck, but when you have been unexpectedly overachieving for the game so far. They deserve to lose the game for punting the ball away.
On their own 34?
Yes.
You think that's one of the most gutless calls?
Yes, absolutely.
Man. I was thinking about this last night when the Chargers got stuffed on 4th and 1.
Right.
And a lot of teams, so here's what's funny. We're seeing a lot more, there's just a lot more 3rd and 1s and 4th and there's a lot more 4th and 1s, right? There's a lot more just short yardage plays. I think it's becoming a more difficult call. So I do wonder if the numbers start to change now that we get it's not that we have a bigger sample size of like 1 yard to go plays, but like 4th and 1 plays, because defenses are loading the box big time on 4th and 1.
Yeah,
and they're trying to,
again,
of course,
just go for it better. Just don't run it right up the gut.
All I'm saying is I would like to see. I'm wondering if the conversion percentages are actually getting lower, because teams are definitely. You don't want to throw the ball on 4th and 1. It's a little bit riskier there, right? You know, a lot of things have to go right. All I'm saying is teams are running. You're running QB sneak, and you're running like duo, which is basically like, you know, get a couple double team blocks, and you just find a little crease, and you just want to jam the running back up there. But teams they're just doubling up on the A gaps, bare fronts, and all that stuff, and taking things away. I wonder if it is a more low percentage play than it's been. And, you know, to your point, you want to keep the ball and all that stuff, but there is risk in putting the ball into the other team's hands that is better than you when they've struggled a little bit offensively for whatever. I wouldn't say it's as gutless as you're saying.
You have a quarterback. Tyrod Taylor should be one of the league's best short yardage cheat code quarterbacks, right? If you have Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback, you can run the kind of option play that makes a defense wrong whatever they do, whether it's a read option fake, an RPO that stresses a defense to the point where something is not covered, right? If they want to take away the QB sneak or the run right up the middle with a bare front, then fine. You are collapsing inside, and Tyrod can keep the ball and scamper for a yard around the edge. If they cover that, all of a sudden he can dump it off to a receiver who's been uncovered by the fact that the dude is playing Tyrod Taylor. If you can't pick up 1 yard with Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback, you do not deserve to be crafting an offensive scheme in the NFL.
It's not the most gutless move, man.
Absolutely
it's still
is.
In your own territory.
It's cowardly.
Going for it in your own territory, in the 30s, in your own 30, 34, wherever they were at the 34, is still a little uncharted territory in the NFL. It is uncommon to go for it.
You are a 10-point underdog who is watching their lead evaporate.
I get
that
it.
You have no business owning in the first place.
I understand.
Your options are give the ball back to the team that just put up a touchdown if they get one more,
but it worked.
Has the lead.
It worked this time.
Yeah, well, that's not the point. Or go for the first down, which you really should be converting given the talent that you have at quarterback, and be able to chew up at least another couple of minutes off the clock, even if you go another straight, like 3 and out.
Just saying. I've seen more egregious decisions. Since Derrick Henry's gone down, Tennessee scored 28, 23, now 13 points. Again, a little inflated with the pick 6 against the Rams a couple weeks ago. So the offense having some issues, and now they go to New England next week. Patriots coming off of a little extra downtime because of the Thursday night game. Patriots trending in the right direction. Titans maybe trending in the wrong direction coming off of this game. It's going to be an interesting one next week, which we will preview on Wednesday. One of the benefits of the Titans starting 8-2 with a difficult schedule. They had the easy schedule, right? Easiest schedule. Well, they just lost some of that easiness because they lost to one of the teams they were supposed to beat. Anyway, the number 1 seed wide open here, and New England not only in first place, but actually like in the mix for the number 1 seed, especially if they beat Tennessee next week. It is crazy right now in the AFC. I think that's it for the 1 o'clock games. There's 3, 4 o'clock. We have 4 more games to discuss here. 4 o'clock games. Let's go Cincinnati 32, Las Vegas 13. It was a close game. I mean, it was close for much of it. And Cincinnati pulls away. It was like early season Bengals, where they just laid the smackdown late. A couple big runs by Joe Mixon to seal the deal. He ran the ball well. And another early season type of Bengals game where they ran the ball way more than they threw it. Didn't even do much through the air, but didn't matter. That was one of the themes this weekend, Sam, even in a dome here in Vegas. Rushing attacks were strong for a lot of the winning teams here. And Mixon and the Bengals did a really nice job up front.
Yeah, they did. Like the Bengals, so this was a game of like 2 teams are basically in the same spot, right? They've both been wobbling the last couple of weeks. They're both still in reasonable shape in terms of overall record and contention heading into the game. It mattered a lot to either one of them in terms of like playoff seeding, the chase for the wild card, all those kinds of things. And it looked like one of the 2 teams, you know, was capable and interested in making that happen. The Raiders, I think, are sort of falling apart a little bit based off where they were earlier in the season. I don't know how much. It's an easy narrative to connect where they are now with the things that have happened to them in terms of John Gruden getting fired, Henry Ruggs getting arrested, and cut from the team. It's easy to draw a straight line between those things and say, well, what team could withstand all that kind of turmoil? On the other hand, it might just be that the Raiders were overachieving where they were earlier in the season, and now they're not. But for the Bengals, like, they actually have the capacity to still, beat teams like that, and they had regression as well, but theirs felt like they went from the high end of variance with throwing to Jamar Chase to the low end of variance, and they're going to bounce back and equalize somewhere in the middle, and somewhere in the middle is still like more than productive enough to be really good.
You've also gotten Derek Carr regression over these last few weeks, and how much of that? Look, I know the Henry Ruggs thing. I don't want to just focus on the football part of it. It was a horrible thing. I want to acknowledge the football component there, where Ruggs, or a deep threat, had been kind of like the catalyst for this Raiders offense over the last 2 years. Aguilar last year, Ruggs this year, a more aggressive Derek Carr. I mean, since that point, you have lost that deep threat, or at least that guy that defenses are accounting for, and it's put more pressure on either other receivers to step up or Derek Carr to trust other receivers throwing down the field. He has not played great. He now has 7 turnover-worthy plays over the last 3 weeks, and that includes against the Giants, where you had a big comeback opportunity, and he threw a pick 6 in that game. He had a big comeback opportunity, throws it away there. Had a chance to make a comeback against the Bengals, throws it away again. So yeah, I think, so did Carr's regression happen in part because you're just losing a key component of the offense, or was he was playing really well, but just way above his normal threshold, and he's just back? I mean, he's got an 80 passing grade now, which is right in the range where he's been in previous years, 81, 83. Is he back to his normal level, which, because he was one of the highest graded quarterbacks in the league after week 7 from a passing grade standpoint. Did Derek Carr just regress back into what he is, or how much do you actually blame all of these other pieces, Gruden, Ruggs, and all this stuff, right? It's easy to create a narrative. It's also easy to say, he's just found his level.
He's gotten less aggressive. So one of the things that was characteristic of his incredible play earlier in the season was how much he was attacking deep down the field and how efficient he was when he was attacking deep down the field. Now, they weren't always going to Henry Ruggs, so it's not like a 1-for-1 thing. Hey, you take the one guy that's got blazing speed out of the offense, and the deep ball isn't there anymore because they were going to guys like Hunter Renfrow and a bunch of other people. But over the last 3 weeks, Derek Carr, his percentage of deep passing has nosedived. Like, he's got 10 deep shots in the last 3 weeks out of 120 dropbacks, essentially.
Yeah.
And I forget what he was before, but he was one of the most aggressive. He was up at like 17, 18%, which was like leading the league. So it's taken a massive dive downwards. And he's been less efficient when he has gone deep. So removing Henry Ruggs from the offense has made a dramatic effect to the way that Derek Carr is playing the game, which probably is even greater than just having him not there as a deep threat. Now, Deshaun Jackson is there now. I don't have a great reason why Deshaun Jackson hasn't immediately fixed that, because whatever Henry Ruggs brought to the table, Deshaun Jackson should be able to bring, and then some, even him now, just the way he plays the game. Maybe it's a case of you need longer for him to learn the entire playbook and kind of get in deep with everything and understand, have the full options there.
He had 10 receiving snaps yesterday. They hit Zay Jones on a deep ball a couple weeks ago. I feel like they're trying to make Zay Jones that guy. You know what I mean?
I think they just don't know who the guy is anymore. They just don't have that guy. So now you're trying to just do it with anybody, and it doesn't work the same.
And here's the reason why you need that deep threat too, or at least the way the Raiders have made it work. Hunter Renfrow, beautiful underneath slot receiver, right? Does what he does extremely well. Darren Waller, your mismatch weapon. He was their big guy yesterday. Of course, he can do a lot of nice things. You just need that top layer of the defense accounted for, which opens things up for Waller and for Renfrow. Brian Edwards has not, they didn't play in overtime in this game. So you don't have Brian Edwards breaking out and becoming TO in overtime like he likes to. So there are issues there. There are issues that, the Raiders have to figure out and adjust. And unlike some of the other teams across the NFL, the Raiders have not run the ball well at all this year. Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, the O-line played better yesterday as far as what they did up front from a run blocking standpoint, but you just have not gotten the run game production, and that's what makes it seems like that's what makes other teams better. Is okay, if the passing attack isn't as good in a given day, you can make up for it on the ground, and the Raiders just have not had that margin of error this year. Bengals do, though, and I thought Joe Mixon ran the ball extremely well, like I said. Forced 3 missed tackles, but just again, he just did a really nice job creating a couple big plays there that were game changers for the Bengals. So that's it. And we said the Bengals defense, man, they bounced back and did a much better job in this one after being the get right game for the Jets and then for the Browns.
Yeah, but I think that does say more about the Raiders offense than it does the Bengals defense. Like I don't want to take away what they did. Like Trey Hendrickson had a good game. Who am I thinking of? The slot corner, whose name? Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton made a couple of really nice reads and shut down some kind of plays that are supposed to be relatively easy gains. Like he's a difference maker for that defense. But like again, this is just the Raiders offense is not the same without the threat of a big play in it, and they don't have that right now.
People saying my curls look extra tight this morning. I think
who is saying that?
I don't know, some guy in the YouTube chat. I went back to check out YouTube.
Somebody said your curls look extra tight this morning.
Yeah, he's making fun of me, obviously, but that's fine. It's okay. Anyway, if you're in the YouTube chat, hit that thumbs up. Help us go viral even more. Appreciate everybody tuning in live on a Monday morning. Love being with you guys, reviewing everything that happened in the previous week of the NFL. Good for the Bengals, 6-4 in the hunt like everybody else in the AFC. Hashtag in the hunt. That's our new hashtag. All right, we got 2 more of those 4 o'clock games. You want to go right to Dallas, Kansas City? We ready?
Okay.
The biggest game of the week, Kansas City Chiefs 19, Dallas Cowboys 9. Again, I repeat once again. So I picked Kansas City. Oh, nice. I picked Kansas City. You picked Dallas. Yeah. You thought Dallas was you picked them to win. That was a money line.
Yeah. I thought they would win.
Yeah. 19-9. Now, Dallas had Amari Cooper came down with COVID late in the week.
Yes.
We didn't know they weren't going to have
I thought that,
Amari Cooper.
I thought that when they had their 2 best receivers.
Understood.
Both of whom they lost in the game.
Then CeeDee Lamb gets concussed during the game. That was on the interception, right?
Yes.
Dak, Travarius Ward makes a really nice interception, slightly underthrown. Deep ball. Clearly Dak was off.
Again.
And the Chiefs, he was off again. The Chiefs' defense was fantastic. And again, if you are flipping channels right now, everybody's telling you the Chiefs have a Super Bowl caliber defense right now. Is that reality, or were the Cowboys just bad and hurt?
So Kansas City's defense looked really good. Now, the debate is, was their defense amazing, or was Dallas's offense in a funk again, which is what, the second or third time in a few weeks that's happened to them. The point, if you're like, hey, Kansas City is back, is, well, where's the offense still? Dallas' defense is not incredible.
I think the Chiefs scored 19. They missed a field goal and all this. Like, points don't always completely tell the story. I thought the offense is still not the same explosive offense. Do they put together a few drives here and there where it's like, wow, yeah, you're faster than everybody. Yeah, you're faster than everybody, but it's not necessarily the same. Mahomes turns it over with a fumble. The ball hits Travis Kelce right in the numbers and bounces backwards for an interception. Some of the weird turnover luck showed up again, but it's not a scary Chiefs offense. Once again, top to bottom. And I think that's as big of a story as them giving up 9.
Yeah, and Dallas didn't they didn't do what the Raiders did. Like, they didn't rock out there with, hey, here's cover 3 all day, have fun. They also didn't do a complete pivot to the kind of 2-4-6 type of coverage shells that have slowed down the Chiefs. They ran a lot of man coverage, and they ran a lot of cover 2 as well. So they did a kind of halfway house, which I think is probably fair to say, split the difference and say we're definitely not going to do what the Raiders did because that's clearly suicidal. On the other hand, us becoming a completely different defense for this 1 week is probably a bit too much to ask as well. So let's try and figure out a middle ground here. I think they charted that reasonably well, and I think it did do a half-decent job of slowing down that Chiefs offense, which, as much as it didn't look like it has the last few years or, in fact, the last week, it also didn't seem to panic the way it did earlier in the year when things went bad.
True.
Now, maybe that was because they weren't behind. Like, if Dallas's offense had been cooking, maybe you would have seen the Chiefs tighten up again and them start to feel like they need to push and start to compound mistakes with more mistakes and the whole thing spiraling. But because they weren't in that situation and they were ahead and Dallas didn't look like they were going to score points, they didn't seem to have the same level of kind of panic and concern when things were going against them or when they made mistakes or when things started to fire. So I think the Chiefs I think it's still up in the air. I don't think we know yet where they are. But the fact that they've been able to get through their struggles and are now like pretty well positioned at the top of their division again and in pretty good spot for AFC seeding, like, it's huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to have it's not like a downer on the Chiefs. It's good to win football games. It's good to win football games in different ways. I don't think the defense is leading them to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, it does feel like last year's defense, though, which ended up as average, right? So the same way we were talking about the Dolphins earlier, right? They were so bad early on. They've crept back toward average as a football team. That's what the Chiefs have done defensively. Now, there are some tangible additions that have been a part of that, whether it's trading for Melvin Ingram or, changing snap counts for Daniel Sorensen and other players, right? I mean,
lining Chris Jones the hell back inside.
Putting Chris Jones back inside where he's got I saw the NFL numbers, and I didn't go back and check if they're doing this still, but it was like 3.5 sacks, 3 QB hits, 2 tackles for loss. I'm pretty sure those are all the same. I'm pretty sure they count them all as the same play. Anyway, Jones makes a lot of big plays. Yes. Batted pass. I believe he batted the pass, too, on Dak's last interception, right? I mean, Jones has those game wrecker. He has games where he legitimately wrecks a game.
He has the second best win rate in terms of pass rushing from an interior alignment this season behind Aaron Donald. Like, he is the second best interior pass rusher in the league, and you took that guy and threw him to the outside and we're like, well, maybe he's a good edge rusher as well. Absurd idea the more you think about it. And the more they move him back inside, it's like that is a massive difference maker to this defense. Like, we'll figure out the edge rushing thing. Who the hell cares? As long as you have a guy as impactful as he is in the middle, that's like step one. We will patch together pass rush on the edge with guys like Melvin Ingram. And
well, Melvin Ingram is grading about as well as Jones was as an edge.
Right.
And then Jones is obviously
and you have
grading,
Jones on the inside.
Right,
now.
and Jones is on the interior where he's way better than anybody else that they had over there. So, yes, everything is better, in part because of Melvin Ingram, those corners playing much better football. Again, Travarius Ward had that really nice interception. L'Jarius Sneed playing much better in coverage than he was earlier in the year. You see Tyrann Mathieu flying around the field, Juan Thornhill, like all those pieces that they had last year. Plus, like, when they're lining up and they're blitzing and being aggressive, it feels a little scarier than it did early in the year. Because early in the year, they were busting coverages left and right. It's like, why is there nobody near this guy 40 yards down the field? You're not seeing that as much from the Chiefs. I mean, that might be the biggest thing that they've gotten better at, just not having busted coverages like they did.
So we've been really complimentary of like how deep Dallas's receiving core is. This is like a trend, the NFL. Everybody that we thought had this really incredible deep receiving core have immediately been tested on how deep they are by like losing 2 or 3 of their most important receivers. So you lose Amari Cooper before the game, you lose CeeDee Lamb in the game. All of a sudden, like, your starting duo is now Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson, who you're like, those guys are amazing, number 2 and number 3s. And if you have to, if one of them has to take a step up the depth chart, you're good. But so they missed, like, Dak missed Michael Gallup on a double move that could have would have been a huge gain, maybe even a touchdown. Cedric Wilson dropped a couple of passes that were pretty key. Noah Brown, who all of a sudden is getting targets. Like, Noah Brown, I think, had 2 targets and he dropped both of them. So all of a sudden, like, what was a strength, as soon as it gets propelled up and now that's the thing you're relying on, is not good enough to win.
Yeah, that was like early in the game. You saw Dak miss the deep ball. Then he comes back with a dime on third down right through Noah Brown's hands. It's like, okay, it's that type of day for the Cowboys. Dak finished, by the way, on passes 10-plus yards. And this is how we described the Chiefs last year. Remember the Chiefs defense? It was like, okay, they don't do anything great, but they don't allow completions beyond the sticks. Like, here's this random stat, which is very, very important. Don't allow completions for first downs. The Chiefs were really good at that last year. In this game, Dak was 3 for 16 on 10-plus yard throws. Now, there were 3 drops in there, but even if you give him, adjust the completion percentage, it's 6 for 16, right? 3 for 16 in this game. What do you smell? What happened?
That's bad. Yeah. Can we give a lot of credit to Micah Parsons?
Yes.
Micah Parsons has now broken, I believe, the Dallas Cowboys rookie sack record, which is held by DeMarcus Ware. Right? So it's not like this is a record that's inconsequential and not a particularly high achievement. DeMarcus Ware is one of the greatest pass rushers of the last 20 years. Micah Parsons just broke his rookie sack record. We're in week 11, and Micah Parsons has basically been moonlighting as a pass rusher, as like a second job to help out the Cowboys.
He's a linebacker.
Right. The dude is a full-time linebacker who has, for a few games, moonlighted as a pass rusher while they're battered by injuries to all their edge rushers. As like a weekend job, and has broken DeMarcus Ware's sack record. He had 7 total pressures in this game, a couple of sacks. Now, he's done a lot of that damage against bad tackles, but we've said this before, there is a skill set to that. Not every pass rusher is dominant against bad tackles.
No, that's valuable.
But he is freakishly athletic, and against bad tackles just destroys those dudes. And he's had multiple games this year now where he's had like a pass rushing grade of 90 built off just wrecking people that are not particularly good.
I was thinking about this yesterday watching Parsons, right? The word you always used for Kyle Pitts during draft season was unicorn. Is Parsons as much a unicorn as Kyle Pitts?
So we brought up the idea before of I can't really remember a guy that's split positions between linebacker and defensive line the way he did. People, since that, obviously, when you do that, people are like, what about X, Y, and Z? People brought up a few. Clay Matthews went from legitimate edge rusher to playing linebacker like full time. Did all right doing that. The other one that I forgot about was, do you remember when the Bengals made James Harrison a random Sam linebacker?
Yes.
They're like, you're not rushing the passer anymore. You're playing two-down Sam linebacker. They still had
Marvin Lewis, and they weren't running a 3-4 where Harrison always played.
Right.
So he was the Sam.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did really well at that, actually.
Yeah.
Bizarre,
but again,
position
edge
change.
But moving from edge to linebacker is a common move. Like Teddy Bruschi was an edge in college, and he became a really good NFL linebacker. Joe Schobert was a legitimate pass rushing edge at Wisconsin. Moved to that move happens all the time because you're taking a guy.
Yeah, but usually not in the NFL. It happens like from college to the NFL. It doesn't typically happen in the NFL.
Jamie Collins has done stuff like guys. But my point is though, it's still a skill set thing. Pass rushers move to linebacker. Hassan Reddick. Now he had to move back to edge. But Hassan Reddick went from edge in college to linebacker back to edge. You don't see too many legitimate 3-down linebacker types just step down and become pass rushers.
There's also a huge...
And rush. Maybe that's what the Seahawks need to do to Jamal Adams full time, just be a pass rusher.
There's also a huge difference, I think, between playing Sam linebacker in the mid-2000s and playing off-the-ball linebacker in the year 2021. Like, those positions have become dramatically different. Like, the 2-down Sam linebacker doesn't really exist anymore. And if it did, it would have dramatically different responsibilities than it has right now. I do think there's something to the idea that, look, Micah Parsons is clearly a very good edge rusher in his own right. He isn't just athletically freaky, but he has like pass rush moves that work. So there's a difference, I think, between him and just like taking your most athletic guy and making him rush the passer. But I do think there's something to the idea that there are certain players that if you're athletically freaky enough, you might just throw them down there on third downs because what the hell? Like a guy like Jamal Adams or Derwin, the player that must not be mentioned. It's close enough. It's good. Or Jalen Ramsey, right? Players that are freaky enough athletically.
Jalen could do it.
Just say it's third and long. go like if you're the Chiefs, right? It's 3rd and long. We need somebody off the edge to get some pass rush because Chris Jones needs to play inside. So we could put, some random pass rusher that's not very good, or we could just throw our most athletic guy there and see what happens. Like, if you're the Chiefs, how well would Willie Gay do rushing off the edge on 3rd and 11? I don't know, but I'd be willing to take a shot and find out.
He almost had another pick. He tried to jump a route to Dalton Schultz early. Willie Gay, he's going to be that guy. He's going to have a huge playoff interception this year. Okay. But the Chiefs just have a bunch of those guys, like a Willie Gay, that do kind of make those plays. They could do some stuff. Anyway, want to give a ton of credit to Parsons. You on the PFF NFL Daily today, we talked about what's signal, what's noise. It's what we discussed. You think this is noisy for the Cowboys in their offense because of the injuries?
I think they were missing 3 of their most important 5 players on offense, and that's probably an issue to anybody. Like, if they get – now, it might be a problem that lingers because I don't think either CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper will be playing on Thanksgiving on a short week on Thursday. So it might be a thing. Like, it might be another week of dealing with this. But when they get Tyron Smith back, which, okay, that Tyron Smith has a fairly lengthy injury history at this point. Tyron Smith back at left tackle, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb back in the lineup, like, this is a different team.
Yeah, for sure.
It's even a different team in most games. Like, if Cedric Wilson catches 2 passes instead of dropping them, and if Noah Brown catches the passes that are sent his way, like, they had badly timed, inconvenient drops from the guys that needed to step up and make plays. And, of course, Dak missing, like, a key deep ball to Michael Gallup. Like, there was more in the tank even in this game. So I think Dallas is okay. Like, this was an unideal game to drop. I think this was a game there for the taking for them, and they didn't. But I think a large part of that was injuries.
Dallas falls to 7-3. Chiefs 7-4. Highest graded Chief on offense, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, makes his return, running the ball pretty well behind, again, the strength of the Chiefs' offense, the offensive line.
I mean, I'm just happy we stamped out the finger point that he did. Like, you can't have that.
No, can't have.
Look, the kids need to be taught some respect. And if anything is going to teach them respect, it's a flag.
Now they know.
They know.
Now they know.
Don't do it.
You should allow taunting in primetime games when the kids are asleep. That should be the rule. Like, after 11 p.m., taunting's fair
second
game.
half.
Second half of primetime games, taunt all you want.
Taunting's legal.
Any other time, no good.
But they're going to watch the highlights the next day. You can't do that. Like, the NFL would have to stop promoting their own taunting,
I mean, they used to have a whole jacked up segment.
Yeah.
Right? Before they knew brain injuries. Arizona Cardinals 23, Seattle Seahawks 13. Colt McCoy Cardinals are now 2-1.
Yeah.
And when Colt McCoy starts and finishes the game, they're 2-0. He got hurt last week. Again, finding a way to create offense with Colt, keep it throwing the ball underneath, getting Zach Ertz involved, getting A.J. Green involved. Rondale Moore has the Jalen Waddle stat line, 11 catches for 51 yards, 4.6 per catch. But anyway, the Cardinals, man, their defense did a nice job, and Russ still really isn't back, huh?
No. To the point where, I mean, I guess there's no point in starting Geno Smith as a quarterback, but the way they're playing right now, Geno might be a better bet to win games than Russell Wilson is.
There's already a lot of talk. Let's talk about the Seahawks in a second. Cardinals 9-2. Impressive run here with Colt McCoy just to maintain they're the number 1 seed in the NFC right now.
The fact that they've been winning games with neither DeAndre Hopkins nor Kyler Murray is hugely impressive. That they've only dropped 1 game with Colt McCoy at quarterback without their number 1 receiver, I think, is massive for them. And okay, sometimes the backup quarterback is kind of a passenger to these things, but like Colt McCoy executed a game-winning drive effectively yesterday. They just iced this thing and shut down any prospect of Seattle coming back and making this a game. Like, he won this game by doing that. Like, that was really impressive for them. And it's the perfect thing you want from a backup quarterback, right? You know those guys are not capable of winning a bunch of games in a stretch. All you want is a dude that says, we have 3 games, can you go 2-1? Yeah. And Colt McCoy's done that.
He has done that. And they have their bye now, I believe, Arizona.
Sure.
I think they're heading to their bye, so we'll probably see Kyler coming out of that. Really huge for the Cardinals. I mean, it just really huge for the Cardinals to maintain their status there as the number 1 seed in the crazy NFC. And look, they've got some challenges down the road too, but this was one of them, right? You're going on the road to Seattle. They have a crowd now. It's not last year in Seattle.
Right.
Russ is another week removed from the mallet, and it's just it's a good win. And now in Seattle,
hang on, they're a team who we've been talking about. Dallas's receivers, their depth got tested and they didn't show up. Tampa Bay's depth has been tested and they haven't really shown up either. There's a few teams like that where we thought they had really great receiving cores. As soon as you tested the depth, it's been shown wanting. Now, okay, Arizona have only really been missing one guy, DeAndre Hopkins, but it's a pretty important one. 2 if you count Max Williams going down earlier in the season with a torn knee. But their depth showed up, like Rondale Moore with the 11 catches for 51 yards, moving the chains. Every time I looked up, A.J. Green was making like a ridiculous jump ball.
Yeah.
Even on passes that shouldn't have been jump balls, right? Like just a dig right over the middle that for some reason is airmailed 2 yards over his head. A.J. Green goes up and snags it. He made a few really good plays as well. Zach Ertz is a key part of this offense now, having replaced what they lost in Max Williams. So their depth has shown up, like even with a backup quarterback. Arizona's, like, that's one of the reasons I think that they are firmly in contention and like maybe the favorites for their division. They've shown up and won the games where their depth has been tested. All
that said, Arizona did get away. Colt McCoy did get away with 3 turnover-worthy plays, no interceptions, recovered his own fumble, got away with some, which was nice. Luck helps as well. Now in Seattle, things have turned to, is it time to blow it up? Are they overreacting in Seattle? Is it time to blow it up? Pete, Russ, the whole thing, it's just over.
Well, it might be forced upon them. I mean, Russell Wilson was allegedly unhappy in the offseason to the point where he went on, a national show and voiced his displeasure. And for a guy like Russell Wilson, who's like one of the most bland, hallmark, he's like a human hallmark card. You know what I mean? Just nothing but platitudes and, Mr. What the hell is the thing? What's his shtick?
Too much?
No, Mr.
All of the above, Mr. Ultimate.
Not Ultimate.
That's PFF Ultimate.
Yeah, well done.
Unlimited. Mr. Unlimited.
Whatever it is. Anyway, he's like a human hallmark.
Whatever
card.
it was, the other suggestions that I gave aren't any better or worse than Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, that might have been it. Unlimited.
It's Mr. Unlimited.
Right.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could have just said that at the start, and we wouldn't have had this.
Yeah, but the other ones like the Mr. Too Much and all that stuff, they're similar.
Yeah. So this is Russell Wilson, right? Just this bland, nothing, beige person down the line. And that guy goes on TV and is like, I'm pretty unhappy about getting hit so often. Now, leaving aside the fact that half of those hits are his fault, the fact that he was prepared to do that, I think, and I said at the time, was a fairly clear statement that things are not well in Seattle. And they go and, all right, we'll go get you Gabe Jackson. Fine, but Gabe Jackson isn't a particularly good player at this point, so it might have placated him for a while, but all of a sudden the dude's back and things are bad again. And not only is the offensive line not any better, it's probably getting worse because Dwayne Brown is getting old and declining. And if you're Russell Wilson, you just had like your first significant injury of any description that knocked you out of some games. So even if you're like, okay, it was a freak injury, it's my hand hitting a helmet, in Russell Wilson's head, it's probably like, this is symptomatic of the fact that I'm getting hit too often. And I'm a guy that wants to play till I'm 67 years old like Tom Brady, and now this is what's going to keep me from doing that. These guys in front of me that are supposed to be protecting me are getting me hurt, and I'm done with it. So if you're like, I would say a pretty good chance at this point that in the offseason, Russ is like, okay, we need some major changes here, or I want out.
Yeah, we're talking, but from like a Seahawks perspective now too. Last year they had 3 draft picks. They came out of last season. They say this all the time. It's like, the roster's not great. How are we going to refix it? We have 3 draft picks. Don't have a first rounder again because of Jamal Adams, right? I mean, you've invested so much in Jamal Adams, who had a 39 coverage grade yesterday. Mm-hmm. Defense that got picked apart. Now there was the real turning point in the game is was it Ryan Neal? I think tried to pick off Colt McCoy. I don't know if it was Neal. I lost to it. It was a Sidney Jones. Somebody tried
did
to
pick him off, and then they found.
That's what. Yes, dropped it. Yeah. So Sidney Jones picks off Colt McCoy. It's a 10-point game, And so it just shows like the fine line between all this stuff. It's 16-6 at the time. Colt McCoy tries to throw a pick. Seattle would have brought it back to about the 5. And what, just barely hit the ground? Like,
how do you feel about that pick? Because that's one of those ones where nobody thought that was not an interception, including the guy that caught it.
Yeah.
Like, Sidney Jones felt cheated by the replay that showed he probably didn't actually come up with it. Like, those are plays where it feels like you found something on replay that wasn't really there. You know what I mean? I understand that when you break it down, you look on replay, it's like, yeah, that ball did hit the ground. He didn't quite have. But at the time, there's literally not a human being in the stadium, including on both sides. Every single member of the playing field thought that was a pick. Nobody was looking for, like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes players just know this is one that we need to look at. This is iffy. Nobody thought that was iffy. But when you dug it up and you went on the slow-mo, it's like, oh, look, actually, that's not a turnover. You get to keep the ball. I don't know if I like that.
I know. I mean, you're the guy that's like, oh, it's a great play. Just let them all stand.
Well,
let all the
a
big
great
plays
play.
stand.
It's just like, if there's not a human being in the stadium that wants you to look at that, why look at it?
Yeah. I don't have an opinion on. I mean, I think you just kind of like let it play out. You had to overturn. I mean, if you have to overturn it, you have to overturn it. But I'm just saying that was just like the Packers play where Darnell Savage has a game-changing interception. This is a game-changing interception that Sidney Jones had, didn't completely complete the catch. He was the only guy who graded well in coverage for Seattle. That is as big of an issue as what's happening offensively there is Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks and all these guys. Like their scheme is being attacked. They don't have the best corners in the world, but as their linebackers and safeties that are getting attacked in this system, there's not an adjustment happening here. They had made a couple weeks ago, they did a nice job on underneath stuff, but they're just giving up far too many easy completions in Seattle. So the whole roster's got some issues.
Yep.
And now you've got Russ playing hurt, and he can't raise the level of everybody else around him, and that's why you score 13 points and lose to the Cardinals with Colt McCoy as the starter. They almost lost to Colt McCoy last year in the Giants. Or did they lose to the Giants last year? It was a close game. Either way, Colt McCoy doing stuff, getting stuff done. Impressive win by the Cardinals. We'll have plenty to talk about with Seattle this offseason. I think there's going to be some stories coming out of there. Give it a quick look. Make sure we haven't missed anything else as I move to what I think is the last game. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers 41-37 victory. I hope you didn't go to sleep early on this one, because the Steelers made it interesting with block punts and fourth down, stuffed the Chargers on fourth down in their own territory, the play I was talking about earlier, to make this one close. But the Chargers pull away to move to 6-4, and the Steelers drop to 5-4-1.
Blocked punt, a batted pass.
Oh, batted pass interception, and then the fourth and one. Like those three legitimate plays that are just like, oh, the Steelers, you have the ball with the shortest of short fields.
Here's the downside to being able to throw a strawberry through a battleship or whatever the hell it was that Justin Herbert was supposed to be able to do. If you accidentally bean a dude in the head with the ball, it's going to go 17 miles in the air and hang there for a week and a half until somebody picks it off.
Cameron Sutton made the diving interception on that play.
So when I first saw that play, I saw obviously the dude get Cameron Hayward batted down. And by batted down, he stood high enough up in the air that it hit him in the face.
Really hit him in the head.
It's not quite the same as like you got his hands in the throwing lane and obstructed it. So gets beamed in the head. Ball goes up a mile. Cameron Sutton picks it off. Gets drilled by what looked like a pretty dirty shot from the Chargers offensive lineman. I forget who it was.
It wasn't dirty. He was still moving.
Pretty iffy. There was another one as well.
He had to go make sure he was down by contact. It was Storm Norton, by the way.
Okay.
Storm had some rough blocks again. But Storm comes flying in to make sure that he's down by contact. And it was Sutton, right? So Sutton's still rolling.
I mean, look.
And where his helmet hit happened to be where
when a dude is on the ground, like you can make sure he's down by contact without like torpedoing your fat ass into him.
330 pounds, you're trying to go fast. It's tough to slow down.
There was one in the Bengals game as well where a dude got hit in the head like that felt pretty rough. Anyway.
There's no way of saying I'm going to hit him in the helmet as he's rolling.
No, but there's a way of being like, I'm not going to literally launch myself like a human torpedo knowing that I have no control over where that lands.
Maybe.
Anyway, so Cameron Hayward gets hit in the head by this. Ball goes up. Sutton picks it off. Goes down. Tackled. Then the next thing you see is like Sutton on the ground sort of being looked at because the dude's just been torpedoed by Storm Norton trying to make it. But initially, I didn't realize that hit had done that. So I thought that briefly that the pass from Justin Herbert beating Cameron Hayward in the head had like.
Oh, you thought that knocked him out?
Like the replacements.
The guy with the helmet? Yeah.
When Footsteps Falco drills the defensive lineman in the face with the ball. I thought maybe that had been what happened to Cameron Hayward. Ironhead Haywood's son apparently didn't have as iron a head, but that's not what happened.
It would have been a much better story.
It would.
I think. So Justin Herbert has his best game in a while. Really nice job throwing the ball and then, setting records here because he ran for 90 yards and threw for 382. That was the first time anyone's ever rushed for over 75 with over 350, whatever the cutoffs are. He ran for a lot and he passed for a lot. The Steelers tried to play man coverage and didn't account for Herbert, and he did a really nice job picking up yards on the ground, scrambling. Obviously led the Chargers with those 90. Austin Eckler finds the end zone 4 times, 2 on the ground, 2 through the air. But most importantly, I think Herbert it was like early season Herbert, not missing a ton of throws. And then the absolute game changer was Mike Williams just being let wide open up the sideline for the game-winning touchdown, 53-yarder where the Steelers just didn't cover anybody. The Steelers, by the way, depleted defensively. No T.J. Watt, no Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Who else were they missing? There was one other. Joe Hayden. So the Steelers were battling with their backups and had some freak plays to keep it close, but ultimately, the Chargers won a game that they should have won given the injuries on the defensive side for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and it's another one where I'm not sure it answered any of the things that have been concerning about the Chargers. It feels a little bit like the Raiders game for Kansas City last week, where it's like, did they get right? Did they fix what was wrong, or did they just run up against a defense where it didn't matter? Heading into this game, you're kind of quietly like, why? What is the reason that Justin Herbert is less aggressive or more conservative with the ball than you think Justin Herbert should be, given what he can do? His average depth of target has been really low across 2 different offensive schemes now. He doesn't have the kind of big-time throw rate you would think he does, given what he's capable of. And, okay, Joe Lombardi has, by our metrics, about the least unique scheme in the NFL. Just this, it's so the same. It doesn't do anything different. It doesn't seem to be asking a lot of Justin Herbert. It seems to be sort of pushing him into this mode of play. And Eric used this phrase on the preview show on Sunday that Herbert, because of his personality, sort of defaults into this "I just work here" mode, where it's like, well, if you're not going to give me the scheme that lets me do these things, I'm just going to do what is asked of me, and this is the result.
Just being a good employee here.
Right. I'm just doing what I'm told over here.
Yeah.
And this is another game where his average depth of target was 6.3 yards downfield. It's not like this opened it up. It's just that it didn't matter because all of a sudden the Steelers are busting coverages and they're letting those big plays for him to run into, and they're gaining yards after the catch and all these kinds of things. And okay, they racked up 41 points. They look great doing it, but did it actually answer any of the questions we had 4 days ago?
No. Here's what I find interesting though about Herbert, because me, I would much rather see him being aggressive, chucking it down the field. He had 2 big-time throws in this one. You see the deep out layered over the linebacker in front of the corner. You see a seam route up, against a cover 2 linebacker. I love those throws. I love that Herbert can make those and everything. Now he's got the 3rd lowest turnover-worthy play percentage in the NFL behind Tom Brady and Kyler Murray this year. I am impressed that Herbert can play that game. But I think but he's also one of the lowest in big-time throw rate, where Brady's one of the highest, Murray is one of the highest, Herbert's one of the lowest. So this goes back to that earlier question 4.5 hours ago early in the podcast where we said, would you rather have a guy highly volatile, big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays? I think because of what Herbert's capable of, I would rather have him have a mistake or 2 in there in order to create big plays. Because they're not at the mercy of their playmakers either. They've got a Jared Cook who can run the seam. They have a Keenan Allen who can work every level of the field. They have a Mike Williams who wins down the field, right? They have guys who can win at the intermediate and the deep level. I'm impressed that Herbert can play this safer, conservative level, this conservative game where he just didn't miss a ton of throws yesterday. I love that. I didn't think he had that in the bag coming out of Oregon, right? But I would still try to trend the other way and be a little bit more aggressive with him going forward.
And particularly like the big time throws that he had in that game yesterday are the perfect sort of thing to raise when you're questioning why does the rest of the offense not look, why is it not more like that all the time? That first one, fitting it between the linebacker and the DB from the far hash, like 20 yards. That is a throw not many quarterbacks can make. Like we talked about before, Tua cannot make that throw. Literally can't make it.
Yeah.
If he makes that throw, it is picked off 100% of the time.
Well,
he cannot fit it into that window. Herbert can, and the other one is a similar thing, right? That is a guy that's not wide the hell open. Herbert just sees it coming, and when he puts his life force into a throw, like Tua has to do for basically every pass, he can fire a laser into a tight window. You're like, okay, but then why is your average depth of target 6 yards? Like, why are we not doing this more often? You can fit it into a window that not many other quarterbacks can. Why are we not taking more of those shots?
I feel like I contradict myself sometimes because you have like a Trevor Lawrence who's capable of making those throws, and I'm like, give him the easy stuff. You got to give him. Now Herbert's getting the easy stuff, so to speak. He's working the underneath game, and I want him. I want those quarterbacks to just find that balance where you're tapping into incredible arm strength and arm talent, but also giving them enough outlets that they're just gonna, not have to just hit a deep out every single time.
Yeah,
so
like I don't.
There's a balance to be had, I think, for this Chargers offense.
Like the risk is you go too far in the other direction and all you're doing is trying to make hero passes every single drop back. And obviously you don't want that either. But right now, we're too far on the conservative side of things. And when you have the obvious arm talent that he has, it's one thing if you have a quarterback playing like that and they're Alex Smith or Tua or even Joe Burrow or whoever it is with like a not amazing skill set. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I can see why we're playing this way. But when you have Herbert, and when he's playing that way, every game, there's one or two passes in there where you're like, God, that's insane.
Yeah.
Why are you like?
We're not criticizing the Chargers for scoring 41 points against the Steelers. Just looking forward. And your initial point was
right. I'm not even criticizing.
This didn't solve everything necessarily.
I'm simply saying, to what extent was this a product of Pittsburgh's defense just giving them this type of performance? Like Buffalo a week ago stomped on the Jets, and you're like, wow, Buffalo is perfect again. The offense is amazing. Like, yeah, look, but like. None of the things that are none of the problems within the Buffalo offense could possibly manifest against a Jets defense that is that terrible. Effectively, this performance, good as it was meaningless. So all I'm saying is, as good as this performance was for the Chargers offense, and it was very, very good, I don't know that it answered any of the questions we had about this offense 4 days ago.
Big Ben, I think the Steelers offense, I mean, it looks nice because they had a bunch of short fields and all that stuff. Big Ben had 3 turnover-worthy plays, none of which actually seemed to matter. Tried to throw 2 picks that got dropped, fumbled, got the ball back. But this offense goes as Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool go. Both of those guys made some big plays. Deontay is becoming pretty legit as far as catching the ball down the field, creating after the catch. But overall, this Steelers offense is just lacking. They had a 4th and 1,000,000. To finish the game, and Big Ben checked down again. It was amazing. It was literally, 4th and 36 to end the game, and he tried to throw a 5-yard in cut.
Yeah, I mean, look, 4th and 36, there's a limited number of plays in the playbook for that. On the other hand, I don't understand why all of their 4th down plays appear to be like the maximum amount of yardage we can pick up here is like 4.
Anyway, Chris mentioned it a lot on the broadcast. I mean, Big Ben he battled COVID all week. He did have... he was pretty sick, apparently, throughout the week. And same excuse we would make for an Aaron Rodgers when you don't get to practice and all that stuff, right? I mean, it's a challenge, but Big Ben has done that a ton throughout his career.
Yeah.
The guy rarely practices, and maybe rest is actually good for him. But it seems like he was battling some symptoms and all that stuff, so...
Yeah, and COVID is one of the... It's got such a wide variety of effects. It's very hard to know, does it affect anybody at this point? Not like when you have a guy who has COVID, it's impossible to know where he is on the spectrum in terms of did it affect him. Like he could be 100% right now, and Ben Roethlisberger is just a bad quarterback at this point in his career, or he could be still with the lingering after effects of COVID that might last the entire season, and Roethlisberger is not going to be 100% of whatever his capacity is from this point on. We have no earthly idea.
So as I said earlier, Chargers moved to 6-4, Steelers 5-4-1. Huge game when it comes to the playoff picture down the road. Both teams are hashtag in the hunt.
Yes.
in the AFC.
Yes, they are.
I think Mike Clay posted in the NFC, all but the Lions are either in the lead or within 2 games of the wild card.
Right.
Literally every team, including the Seahawks. So
Yes.
should be a fun second half of the season. Hold those mock drafts. We still have football to be played.
Unless you're the Lions.
Unless you're the Lions. Look at those mock drafts. NFL Pod is your promo, 25% off. Go do it right now. Give us that thumbs up on YouTube if you're live. We appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. And again, we will be back on Wednesday, and it won't be just a random show. It's going to be previewing all of the Week 12 games, including the Thanksgiving games. We got 4 on Thursday.
So that does make me realize that the master plan of deferring the charity thing to Wednesday because our Wednesday show is more open doesn't make any sense at all.
Didn't. Even as you were saying that, I figured you're not making any sense.
And you just decided not to tell me that.
Maybe we should do it daily. No, we can't do it daily.
No. We'll do it on Wednesday. It's just that Wednesday's show might be more to do with this than the preview games.
We'll get it all in. We'll figure it out.
It'll be there. Look, what if we have to go 2.5 hours? We go 2.5 hours.
Do
what
we
the
do
hell
a
is that?
Tuesday? Do we
Has
just
that
do a
never
Tuesday
stopped
show?
us? No.
Stop it. Anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Enjoy Monday Night Football. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.